I know. No, I know. It's something that's like, it's almost auto. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I'll just go ahead and start.
Ready for that back?
Good afternoon. There's echo. My name is Priscilla Rojas, and I am the chair of the BPDA board. Thank you for joining the March 13th, 2025 Economic Development and Industrial Corporation of Boston board meeting. At this time, the Boston Planning and Development Agency is hosting public meetings in a hybrid setting for the health, safety, and accessibility of Boston residents. Hybrid means that our board meetings are conducted in person at City Hall in our boardroom on the 9th floor and virtually via Zoom and Boston City TV. For more information and updates, visit bostonplans.org. The Open Public Meeting Law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications, at Xfinity Channel 26, RCN Channel 13, and Verizon Fios Channel 962. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/cable. Now, if there is anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting, will you please identify yourself? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Moving on for a roll call. Ms. Bennett.
Present.
Mr. Shepherd.
Present.
Dr. Landsmark.
Present.
Mr. O'Malley.
Present.
And I, Priscilla Rojas, the chair, am present. Cool. Item number 1, request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the February 13th, 2025 board meeting. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark.
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 2, request authorization to enter into a pedestrian bridge easement with 22 Dry Dock LLC to allow for the construction, operation, and maintenance of a sky bridge between 22 Dry Dock Avenue and 6 Tide Street in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 20 and 22 Dry Dock Avenue parcel consists of approximately 80,000 square feet in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. In April 2024, 22 Dry Dock LLC was awarded final designation for the long-term lease and development of that site. 22 Dry Dock LLC will be developing a 337,000 square foot life science facility, which will be leased in its entirety to Vertex Pharmaceuticals for 15 years, an initial term of 15 years. Directly across Dry Dock Avenue is located is 6 Tide Street. In September 2015, EDIC entered into a 70-year lease with TS Partners, who subsequently developed a 360,000 square foot life science facility. Though not initially the intent, that facility is now also leased in its entirety to Vertex Pharmaceuticals. Vertex has requested that a pedestrian bridge be constructed to connect the two buildings. The bridge would allow safe passage of chemicals, personnel, equipment, and materials between the buildings without exposure to weather or temperature changes. The bridge will be of sufficient height to allow for even the largest foreseeable truck to pass beneath it. Vertex Pharmaceuticals would be the sole beneficiary of the bridge, and accordingly, EDIC is not contributing financially toward the cost, nor will there be any reduction in the rent paid to EDIC as a result. Vertex will remain solely responsible for the structural integrity of the bridge. We're requesting today permission to enter into a pedestrian air rights easement, if you will, across Dry Dock Avenue to connect the two buildings, to allow for the construction, operation, maintenance of the sky bridge connecting the two buildings, and for the ongoing maintenance thereof. And that is available for any questions. Thank you.
All right. Any questions or comments from the board? I do have a question. So you said Vertex is going to assume the responsibility. Do we have a part responsibility that we're going to assume for any of this?
No, not
Right.
really. I mean, they will be submitting a construction management plan, and we will be monitoring that it's done properly and the traffic flows, et cetera. But there's no responsibility for us. We're even working with Vertex that in the event that one or both of the buildings is sold and the bridge no longer serves a purpose, they will be responsible to remove it.
Oh, okay, cool. Any further questions? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item number 3, request authorization to amend the memorandum of agreement by and between the City of Boston and Economic and Industrial Corporation of Boston concerning the transfer of funds by the EDIC to the City of Boston to reimburse the city for the cost of staff and services transferred to the city. Devin.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm here for a very simple item. When we originally wrote the MOA that establishes the transfer of funds from the BPDA to the Planning Department for the operations of the Planning Department, we set the expectation, and you approved the MOA that requires the city to give us a draft budget in February, and you would approve it in March. We have done that this year, but we're realizing 10 days to review the whole budget is not enough time, so we'd like to amend the MOA to move it to April and bring it before you in April. Happy to answer any questions.
Makes sense. Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. See you next month. Item number 4, Mike, personnel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Chen. We have 2 items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda with the exact details included in the board memos. We have 2 contracts in the IT division, Connor Tomasco and Zachary Gagnon, and that's it.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And that's the last item. So I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Okay. Thank you for joining the March 13th, 2025 Boston Redevelopment Authority Board meeting. At this time, the Boston Planning and Development Agency is hosting public meetings in a hybrid setting for the health, safety, and accessibility of Boston residents. Hybrid means that our board meetings are conducted in person at City Hall in our boardroom on the 9th floor and virtually via Zoom and Boston City TV at the same time. For more information and updates, visit bostonplans.org. The Open Public Meeting Law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications, at Xfinity Channel 26, RCN Channel 13, and Verizon Fios Channel 962. It's also being live-streamed at boston.gov/cable. Now, if there's anyone in the audience that is recording this meeting, please kindly identify yourself now. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to roll call. Roll call, just roll call. Ms. Bennett,
Present.
Mr. Shepherd,
Present.
Dr. Landsmark,
Present.
Mr. O'Malley,
Present.
and the chair, Priscilla Rojas, is present. All right, item number 1, request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the February 13th, 2025 board meeting. A motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 2, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on April 10th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the second amendment to the amended and restated master plan for Plan Development Area Number 87 and the second amendment to the development plan for the residential project at 125 Guest Street within Plan Development Area Number 87, Boston Landing, Guest Street, Life Street, and Arthur Street in the Brighton area of Boston. Motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 3, request authorization to amend the lease with Charlestown Marina LLC, adding property management responsibilities related to the CNY Harbor Walk and extending the term expiration to March 31st, 2065, and amend the amended and restated land disposition agreement with Carlisle CQ Boston LP to remove routine maintenance responsibilities for a portion of the CNY Harbor Walk from the Paris Landing Condominium Association and amend the agreement with Immobilier New England regarding maintenance responsibilities for a portion of the CNY Harbor Walk, which are currently the responsibility of the Flagship Wharf Condominium at a future date. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. as the introduction would imply, there's a lot of words involved there, but I'm going to be as quick as I can. The Harbor Walk in the Charlestown Navy Yard is an amenity, as we all know, which is enjoyed by thousands of residents and visitors each month. The Harbor Walk begins at Flagship Wharf, proceeds north past Shipley, Paris Landing, Shipley Place, Charlestown Marina, ends at Little Mystic Channel, just past Menino Park and the Spalding Rehab Center. The Harbor Walk consists of about 3,900 linear square feet, or about 3/4 of a mile. The overall quality of the physical Harbor Walk differs between the various parcels depending on which abutting tenant is responsible for the Harbor Walk's maintenance. It's a similar concept to being responsible to shoveling the snow in front of our homes on the sidewalks. The city of Boston, however, can brag of a national award-winning marina right in the heart of the Charlestown Navy Yard. And I'm speaking, of course, about the Charlestown Marina, which was developed in 2015 by Ann and Chuck Legacy under their Ocean Havens is the name of their company. But I'll be referring to them as the Legacies henceforth. It's located between Piers 8 and 7. The Charlestown Marina is a beautiful addition to an increasingly active Boston harbor. Before 2015, however, that wasn't the case at all. The previous owner did not maintain the property on any level. The previous owner was subject to several lawsuits and enforcement actions from municipal and state government authorities for failure to correct multiple safety and code violations. The derelict marina was forced to close in 2014 after the Massachusetts Attorney General mandated that the marina must be brought to compliance with all regulatory codes and make specific capital improvements to the Charlestown Harbor Walk in the Navy Yard. Legacy's purchased what is now the Charlestown Marina with those specific restrictions in force and with eyes wide open on what they were purchasing. The portion of the Harbor Walk subject to the Attorney General's suit lies between Piers 6, 7, and 8. The Legacies have subsequently replaced 600 linear feet of Harbor Walk between Pier 7 and Pier 8. That portion of the Harbor Walk is considered extremely high-quality construction and professionally maintained by the Legacies. We look forward to that same high level of improvement and maintenance along the 300 linear feet in front of, along Pier 6, which is right in front of Paris Landing condominium development. The Pier 6 portion of the harbor, as I said, immediately abuts Paris Landing. There are competing jurisdictions. The reason it hasn't been developed already redeveloped already is there are competing jurisdictions regarding that section of the Harbor Walk. The Attorney General's mandate, which I just discussed, and there's an existing land disposition agreement with the Boston Redevelopment Authority and Immobiliare from back in the day, I refer to as Paris Landing, which also requires them to maintain that exact same portion of the Harbor Walk. The Attorney General mandates that Legacies must not only replace the Harbor Walk but maintain it, and Paris Landing's LDA does not require them to replace it, but does require them to maintain it. It's important to spotlight here that the Planning Department is currently planning to replace the aging 300 linear feet of Harbor Walk in front of Flagship Wharf at Pier 5. In 2023, this board approved expenditures for the design, and in 2024 awarded authorization for the construction, which should begin this year. That portion of the Harbor Walk is also subject to a land disposition agreement between the Boston Redevelopment Authority and Flagship Wharf. Flagship Wharf Condominium Association is currently considering our request to amend the LDA to transfer the maintenance responsibilities to the Legacies for a fee. And obviously, we would want to amend that LDA to reflect that. Unless that LDA is ultimately amended, the responsibility for maintenance of the Harbor Walk in front of Flagship will remain with Flagship, and they do a good job. So that's not horrible if they don't want to do it. Regardless of how those negotiations end, a new Harbor Walk will absolutely be constructed by the Planning Department, and we will be very excited at the prospect of 1,200 contiguous linear feet of stellar development Harbor Walk for everyone to enjoy. The specific reason that I'm here today is to both resolve those multiple competing jurisdictional issues and to incentivize the Legacies to take on the additional maintenance responsibilities and remove any ambiguity surrounding responsibilities to construct the Pier 6 portion of the Harbor Walk. So we are proposing 4 actions. 1, Paris Landing has agreed to make annual payments to the Boston Redevelopment Authority, or the Planning Department, of $12,500, which will increase annually by 2%. Those payments will be made in lieu of their maintenance responsibilities, and the LDA will be amended to reflect that. So they will no longer be required to do the maintenance, but they will pay for the right to get out of that responsibility. Paris Landing has also, this is worth noting if no one does know this, they've also created a beautiful dog park on parcel 2A, which immediately abuts their building, between their building and the Harbor Walk. They created the dog park on their own volition, on their own expense. It's irrigated and meticulously maintained by the condominium association. So we're requesting an additional amendment to the LDA to formalize the existence of the dog park and the responsibility of Paris Landing for the ongoing maintenance thereof. The Legacies currently license approximately 175,000 square feet of water from us, which immediately abuts the Charlestown Marina. We control the water, but it does not, we don't have access to the water from the land because of other site control issues. So we've leased the water to the Legacies to expand the marina, so that they populate it with more floats and obviously more vessels using it. The annual fee paid to the Boston Redevelopment Authority from Legacies is $50,000 per year. The sufficiency of that was determined by my own internal analysis, but we also got an independent appraisal, and we agree that that is a fair rate to pay for that water. It's subject to renegotiation in 2027. We're further proposing an amendment to the existing license to extend the expiration date. The license currently expires in 2045, to extend that license to 2065, and to flatline the annual rent payment at $50,000. The license will be further amended to specifically require the replacement of the Harbor Walk along Pier 6 to remove any ambiguity, and to place sole responsibility of the maintenance obligations of the Harbor Walk from Piers 6, 7, and 8. And in the event that the flagship decides to take us up on our offer, they would also be responsible for Pier 5. The amended license will also allow for the future addition of flagship wharf, as I just mentioned. Though not the driving incentive of this transaction, the net revenue to the planning department will actually increase by about 9% by virtue of the payments from Paris Landing. Far more importantly, all residents and visitors to the Charlestown Navy Yard will benefit from 1,200 continuous linear feet of extremely high-quality harbor walk that is professionally maintained. And thank you. That's my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Seems like a lot of coordination.
There was a lot of cats to herd, but we got it done.
Yeah. All right. If there are no questions or comments, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
All right, item number 4. Request authorization to execute a contract with Colliers International New England LLC in the amount of $787,270 for property management services at the China Trade Building located at 2 Boylston Street for a contract term of 3 years with 2 one-year term extension options. Chris.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Shen. My name is Chris Gloropoulos. I'm the Facilities Coordinator for BPDA in the Real Estate Division. I'm here to present the awarded bid for management services at China Trade Center. The China Trade Center is a 94,000 square foot building owned by the BPDA located at 2 Boylston Street. The commercial facility management firm will be responsible for managing the operation of the China Trade Center, including but not limited to tenant relationship management, the maintenance of the Liberty Tree Plaza, and regular condition assessments of the building. In response to the RFP issued on January 13, 2025, the BPDA received and opened one response on February 19, 2025. It was from Colliers International New England LLC. The proposal response was evaluated based on the comparative evaluation criteria, including plan of service, firm qualification, and experience. Colliers earned an overall composite rating of highly advantageous because of their depth of experience with facilities similar to the China Trade Center, including the China Trade Center itself in recent years. Colliers has demonstrated they can ensure tenant satisfaction, coordinate multiple construction projects and tenant improvements, and constructively manage a unique mix of visitors to the building. The proposal included the Impact software tool that would improve operations. The proposed team included not only a property manager, a project manager, tenant service coordinator, and maintenance engineer, but also proposed a director of facilities as an additional resource with substantial expertise. The resulting contract, based on Collier's bid of $787,270, will be for an initial term of 3 years, or up to $1,379,908 if both one-year extension options are exercised. This contract value will include annual management fees and estimated personnel expenses. This contract will be funded through the BPDA fiscal year 25 operating budget and is considered an ongoing operation cost to maintain the China Trade Center. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? I do have a couple. So have we worked with Colliers before? in the
Yes, they're
past?
the active management company right now
Okay.
at the China Trade.
And what is our process for, when we do these RFPs and we only get one bid, right? Like, how do we go about assessing that?
So I was assured that the RFP process was advertised throughout the proper channels, but I just started here
Yeah, I know, you look
6
really
weeks ago, so
familiar.
I do not
I mean, you look
have,
really new.
I do not have that
I know,
answer for you. I wish I did, but I do not have that answer for you.
You're Dennis.
I'm sorry. As far as the fee goes, we did cross-check that. We subscribed to a publication put out by the Institute of Real Estate Management, which has all the operating expenses for every city in the country. Compared to other office buildings in Boston, it is right in the sweet spot of what other landlords would be paying for management.
Okay,
We did
perfect.
cross-check that.
Thank you, thank you. All right, any additional questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sorry for springing that on you, but you did great. Okay. All right, item number 5, request authorization to adopt a minor modification for the extension of 12 urban renewal plans within the city of Boston until March 31st, 2027, or until the home rule petition is signed into law, and to take all related actions. Max.
Thank you and good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Shen, and Secretary Plamis. Before you is a request authorizing the approval of a 2-year extension to 12 existing urban renewal plans in the city of Boston to March 31st, 2027, or until passage by the State House of a relevant home rule petition pertaining to urban renewal. We can proceed to the next slide. So we have a short presentation here which will inform the measure here. So 12 active urban renewal plans in the city of Boston expire at the end of this month. These urban renewal areas provide legal enforceability for hundreds of land disposition agreements, or LDAs, which enforce important land uses in the city. In 2023, we came before you to seek a 2-year extension to the policy of urban renewal. At that time, Mayor Wu submitted a home rule petition, an act to improve and modernize planning and community development in the city of Boston that was to formally sunset urban renewal while upholding the protections written in the LDAs. As that home rule petition is still pending at the legislature and the sunset deadline of March 31st, 2025 is imminent in just a few days, we must request this additional extension. Next slide, please. We come before you today in recognition of the harms that urban renewal caused historically, particularly to communities that were impacted and displaced in the South End, West End, and Roxbury. Simultaneously, we must navigate the complexities of urban renewal by acknowledging that the policy provides legal protections that are of great value for the city and its residents. These LDAs preserve thousands of units of affordable housing, many public parks and open space lots, civic and religious institutions, and more. Were we to allow these urban renewal plans to sunset, we would lose most of these land use protections and would be unable to recover them. We come before this board today with this request, having also sought and received unanimous support of the Boston City Council for this extension. Next slide, please. As quick background, an LDA is a covenant executed between the owner of the land, in this case the BRA, and the buyer of that land, which could be a private individual, a developer, a corporation, or even another government entity. The LDA enabled the then BRA to place and enforce these land use restrictions on the properties it sells and otherwise disposes of. We use these LDAs to uphold important community uses, some of which are on the screen, such as open space, community uses, affordable housing, elderly housing, and more. In the interest of transparency, we can move to the next slide. In the interest of transparency, the urban renewal team, in coordination with our GIS team, stood up a public-facing dashboard and a document repository housing relevant urban renewal materials, including LDAs. This interactive map and accompanying document folder is accessible to the public via the web links on the screen, and indeed, when I'm working with the public on urban renewal matters, we utilize these public materials quite often. We can move to the next slide. Today, we are tracking 847 LDAs, the vast majority of which expire at the end of this month. These LDAs represent over 20,000 units of housing, nearly 12,000 of which are income restricted, as well as over 3 million square feet of protected open space. In addition, many well-known community institutions, such as the Wang YMCA in Chinatown, the Boston City Lights Arts Organization in the South End, and the Islamic Cultural Center in Roxbury, are protected as civic and community spaces by LDAs. In fact, City Lights staff and participants provided some of the most compelling testimony in support of this extension when we came before the City Council last month, as their revenue stream is dependent on the LDA covering their space. That actually included one person, one young man in his teens who is a burgeoning music artist in Boston, who's actually pretty good. We looked him up after the hearing, and he had been able to support his arts career through this LDA protected space in the South End. Next slide, please. Since the 2023 extension, there have been just a few instances of urban renewal powers being put to active use, as each of these matters has come before this board. Urban renewal powers were used to enable the construction of new housing, community gardens, and public spaces. And last slide. So in conclusion, we would like to restate that we are seeking the board's approval for a 2-year extension to the policy of urban renewal to a new sunset deadline of March 31st, 2027, or the passage of a relevant home rule petition. This will allow for the ongoing protection of affordable housing, open space, and civic community institutions in particular. The Boston City Council held a hearing on this matter on February 11th, 2025, and the following day, the full body voted for passage without opposition. Thank you again for your time. I'm here with Senior Policy Advisor Ruben Cantor, and we look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Yep, thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
So do you have any sense of what the timing or process will be at the state?
I don't believe so, but I'll defer to, yeah.
Happy to take that one, Member Bennett. So currently, our state proposal our home rule petition has passed the City Council. It's passed the House Representatives of the state, but it has not passed the Senate. So it remains active, and we'll be continuing to work with our IGR team. We still remain very committed to getting it passed, and so we'll be working with our colleagues in the state to work on that. It's a 2-year legislative cycle, as you know, so I think sometime in the next 2 years is the answer to your question.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? I'd just like to commend the team on that interactive map. I played around with it a little bit. It's pretty cool. And your efforts to make people aware that it is out there and that we're trying to be as transparent as possible with all the information to be publicly facing while we still have the, obligation to determine whether or not we continue the urban renewal, which is, a difficult thing. I do want to also commend you guys on the your performance at the hearing, not performance, but like your representation at the City Council hearing. I watched that, and I thought you guys did really well.
Thank you very much. Very much a team effort. So.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know, what was I saying? Yeah, so transparency, there's all the information is out there on that interactive map, and it's what we have, and I think the LDAs are important to the city. And yeah.
Thank
okay.
you.
Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, item number 6. This is an informational briefing on the Boston Design Vision Recommendation implementation of the Planning Academy program. Diana.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We're really excited to be here with you this afternoon to share some updates on the Planning Academy. So we were just before you several months ago with the Design Vision Plan, which got adopted by this board as a policy document, and we're here to share some of the elements that were identified in the implementation plan. So just as a reminder, if we go to the next slide, we started this initiative over a year ago, really focused on identifying how we can provide better design services and planning services to all of our residents throughout the city. And we worked really hard, meeting people where they work, canvassing different events, attending open streets, and really getting a sense of how can we provide great access to good urban design throughout all of our neighborhoods. And that led to the next slide, which really focuses in on the design principles. These are principles that we as urban design professionals and planning professionals uphold on behalf of our city and their residents to ensure that we are delivering the best design outcomes. This focuses in on designing from understanding, really building on an understanding of the context of different neighborhoods and what is valuable, ensuring that we're always designing for the future, right? Thinking about housing growth and best practices for sustainability, as well as ensuring that we're not just thinking about the building envelope itself, but also thinking about its impacts to our streets, sidewalks, and open spaces that are critical infrastructure to any of those developments, as well as designing the details, which I think is my favorite principle here, which focuses really in on how do we ground these spaces in details that really resonate with our residents and create a sense of belonging and welcoming throughout our city. So building on those principles, we have launched this plan and focused on our implementation roadmap. So the next slide really focuses in on the work that came out of the vision itself, focusing in on projects, policies, and processes we can advance over a 5-year timeline. So the goal here is to start to kick those off, and we're really excited to present to you one of those first initiatives tonight. So if we go one more slide, we also wanted to share with you some additional context in terms of how the design vision is being implemented in the broader scope of all of the planning initiatives that we're taking on within our department. If we go to the next slide, you can see that we are implementing these design principles, this planning academy, many of the design review reform procedures that we are evaluating through the Article 80 modernization, as well as implementing neighborhood facilitation guides, case study research, and a database of cultural assets within many of our planning initiatives, including our squares and streets. So we do see that many of the elements that had been highlighted within the design vision becoming an integral part are almost sort of ethos, right, that is carrying through both our development review work and our planning initiatives. If we go to the next slide, one of the key things here is that we are working very on a quick timeline here to ensure that each of these initiatives are advancing these goals and are showing residents real results. So as you can see here, the Planning Academy is an effort we hope to launch this year with our first cohort and continue to report on our performance with this educational platform into 2030 and reevaluate the program for the next 5 years. You can also see here how many of these other initiatives around the neighborhood character facilitation guide, our design reform work, and our guidelines all fold into this broader platform and within the 5-year implementation roadmap. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Christiana, who's going to share a little bit more about the Planning Academy.
Hello, my name is Christiana Lacusa. I'm the Deputy Director of Community Engagement at the Planning Department and excited to talk more about the Planning Academy. So on to our next slide. So this is an informational briefing. As Diana mentioned, we released an RFP, and because it is released by the City of Boston, it does not require a board vote. However, we want to make sure that you and members of the public members of the public who tune into these meetings receive information about all the RFPs that the Planning Department is releasing. And we also want to make sure that you as board members have all the knowledge of what's happening in the Planning Department as context for the work that you review. So, what is the Planning Academy? So we've heard from community members during engagement efforts as part of the design vision, as well as from our many other planning and development review processes, that there is a strong desire for a space to dig into the details about the work of the planning department to better understand the nuances, history, and policy context of design, planning, and development review processes. So we're excited to move forward with a planning academy to help meet this need and achieve these following 4 goals. So for goal number 1, there are a number of community members who have spent decades learning about planning and development and provide us excellent feedback. As we work to support the next generation of leaders, we seek to ensure that we are doing our part in allowing those who have historically not been engaged in our work to learn this information and use their lived experiences to inform our work. For goal number 2, the big picture vision for the work the planning department has been leading over the past couple of years to update and modernize our zoning code and development review processes while planning for growth and centering resilience, affordability, and equity. And this big picture vision is implemented through initiatives like Design Vision, Squares and Streets, Article 80 modernization, and many more. What the community often hears is that we're doing a lot. What the Planning Academy provides is an opportunity to connect all these initiatives together and help better paint the picture of how our work supports citywide needs. For goal number 3, we know that many of the people most engaged in our planning and project processes are predominantly whiter, older homeowners. And this Planning Academy will support the planning department in broadening who we hear from to allow community members who are more reflective of the demographics of Boston to inform our work. And for goal number 4, it can be tricky to know what information to provide where and when. While we work to improve our engagement processes internally, we also want to support community members in knowing how to navigate our initiatives and know that if you care about shaping things like where do we need more housing, it is best to do so during a planning process versus if you care most about informing the architectural details of a new building to maintain key features in your neighborhood, it is probably best to do so in an Article 80 process. So on to the next slide. So to get into a little bit more detail about who we are intending to include, as it probably is clear, we're hoping to engage those who have historically not been engaged, but we also want to make sure that we're bringing people that span the breadth of our neighborhoods. The specifics of how we will be selecting people will be informed by our consultant team. On to the next slide. So we are very excited to move forward with the work of piloting our Planning Academy and are going to be bringing on a consultant team to support our efforts. Their work will focus on a couple of key points. 1, they'll bring pedagogy expertise to inform the creation of the curriculum and help ensure that the materials and ways in which we lead these sessions are both engaging and inclusive. 2, to help engage the reach of our recruitment efforts and ensure we spread a wide net to get new folks to participate in our Planning Academy, we'll be excited to lean on their expertise. And then 3, they'll provide additional support around facilitation, skills around evaluation, and to provide logistical needs to get the pilot itself set up. On to the next slide. So this is an outline of the scope of services that we're going to be asking the consultant to complete. As you'll see on this slide, there are lots of different materials they'll be creating, but the things that I think are sort of most important to point to, the facilitator guide, evaluation process, and the train the trainer model, all of which will help ensure that the expertise of the consultant team continues to support this work in the future. On to the next slide. This is an expected timeline for this work. Throughout the spring and early summer, the consultant and staff team will be preparing the curriculum and related materials and begin the recruitment process with a plan to kick off the pilot in late September. The pilot Planning Academy sessions will wrap up before the holiday season starts at the end of November, and the new year we will evaluate and the consultant team will share any recommended tweaks to help us make sure the future rounds of the Planning Academy are even more successful. On to the next slide. The specifics of the course are yet to be determined, but we are expecting that the Planning Academy will consist of a series of 8 sessions over the course of 8 weeks, and will focus on providing foundational knowledge of planning, zoning, design, and development. We seek to demonstrate the impact and importance of community members' lived experience on shaping planning processes, and these sessions will be co-facilitated by city staff and the consultant team. On to the next slide. And with that, I'll pass it to Diana to talk about an exciting partnership.
Thank you so much. We were also really excited to launch this initiative in partnership with the Leventhal Map and Education Center. They are a very visible educational platform within the Central Library of our public library, and it's an opportunity for us to use the visibility and resources that the Leventhal Map Center has to marry that with the resources and curriculum development that we'll be working on with the consultant team and internally. If you go to the next slide, we also just want to remind everybody that there's a lot of work underway, and also give a huge thanks to our internal team, which included Breeze, Abdul from our planning team that's been doing a ton on zoning education, Isabella, John Stewart Fishback, and so many others from our team that contributed to getting this plan out there. We're really excited to continue these partnerships to really show what it means to create a planning department that serves the people of Boston. And this is one of the first steps where we're sharing our knowledge and resources in a way that can mobilize and empower community members to engage with our work. And just a quick reminder here is that we're accepting proposals and they're due by March 21st. Thank you.
Does that conclude the presentation?
It does conclude my presentation.
Proposals for what? For the consultant? Is that what?
Correct.
Okay. Cool. Questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I'll follow up on that, Madam Chair. Obviously, we celebrate there's any efforts we can do to bring new voices and more voices into these important civic conversations. We should be doing so. So brava. Bids are due for the consultancy a week from now. I'm curious if there have been any submitted thus far.
We have received, we did a sort of pre-proposal conference where we had several different firms reach out and submit questions. So we're actively responding to those and getting back to folks. So we do see that there is interest. I don't think there has been anything formally submitted just yet because they have to be delivered in person. But we have, through different organizations reaching out and attending that conference, we have seen interest in being part of this initiative.
That's great. And it's up to $150,000 would be the
Correct.
The price. Okay, great. Thank you.
This is phenomenal. I think this is a wonderful initiative. I'm just curious, how many residents do you think will participate in each cycle?
So our goal is to have representation from every single neighborhood in the city as part of our first cohort. So we're imagining probably close to 30 members of this first cohort. Our goal is to actually, if we go back to some of the earlier slides, we want to hold a super summit a couple of years into this to be able to gather about 100 participants and do a reflection and evaluation and understand how the Planning Academy is working. And we've also reached out to peer cities across the country, Philadelphia, Indianapolis. There's so many great cities that host programs that are similar to this to learn best practices there and ensure that we're carrying that forward in this model.
Great work.
And yes, through the chair, first I want to kind of piggyback off of that. I know you're in your pre-work period right now. Do you see an appetite for this through the communities?
So last year, the mayor's office hosted a civic summit, and it was an opportunity to bring together civic leaders across the country, well, across the city, to come together and really talk about educational resources that the city has available to them to sort of cultivate the next generation of civic leaders. And one of the key things we heard there was, how can I engage? Like, what other resources does the city have to offer us? And we're really excited to report that we're actually going to be at the Civic Summit this year in June to do a session actually on the Planning Academy and focus in on hearing from those civic leaders what are some of the things that they want to learn about. And as Christiana mentioned, we've been hearing a lot from residents through our zoning initiatives, through our development review process, that they just want to learn more about this this outside of the context of a project or zoning initiative. So this is an opportunity to have a safer space to talk about that outside of a particular project.
Yeah, I definitely think anytime you can educate the community, it brings better conversations during the public process of different projects. So definitely, I think it's a great idea too. So thank you.
Great, and I, just want to echo what everybody said. I really appreciate taking a vision and principles-based approach to this work and being intentional about responding to the feedback that we get often when we're doing planning and, development work as well. So I think this is just a really great thing to point to, and a great foundation that the city for many, many years over, right, can build on in building the next generation, the current generation of future leaders in our community. And it's just a great way to get people engaged. And just thank you.
And the last thing I'll mention too is that it's not only an opportunity for us to share knowledge with the public, but also for us to hear from community members that may want to share with us, right, how we can continue to improve our different initiatives or processes. So we do see this as a sort of two-way avenue.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, this was just an informational update, so I don't have
so much
to vote, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
And good luck with everything.
Madam Chair, before we start the next item, Councilor Durkin is here.
Perfect. Oh, yeah, there you are. Councilor Durkin, the floor is yours.
I was here for that, though.
I know, isn't it exciting?
Thank you so much. And I have a amazing track record of coming to all of these meetings myself. So even though I don't believe that this project will be controversial at all, I'm here on behalf of me and my office in support of 77 Terrace Street. ODJ's proposed affordable homeownership development at 77 Terrace Street in Mission Hill is incredible. I've championed this project at every stage of the process because I believe in it, and I believe it's going to support the broader Mission Hill community. The proposal to create 48 much-needed affordable homeownership opportunities by providing stable housing for households earning 80 and 100 AMI in a city where homeownership is increasingly out of reach for many working families. This development will provide a critical pathway to generational wealth building and neighborhood stability. The inclusion of the new adjacent park and community gardens further demonstrate ODJ's commitment to sustainable, community-centered development. And this is transforming a long underutilized parcel that will benefit residents for years to come. For too long, this stretch of Terrace Street has been subject to hazardous conditions and underutilization, despite its prime location within a rapidly evolving corridor. As development continues in Mission Hill, it is imperative that we prioritize projects that center affordability, accessibility, and long-term benefits. This vision aligns with these priorities, and Mission Hill should remain a place where families of all backgrounds can put down roots and thrive. So I hope that you'll vote in support of this proposal tonight. Great to see the proponent here, and excited for our years of partnership together. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Counselor. Okay, item number 7. Request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the successful completion of the 3368 Washington Street project in Jamaica Plain, pursuant to the agreement by and between the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, Washington Pine LLC, Pine Street Inn, and the Community Builders, dated November 14th, 2019. It is a certificate of completion, so a motion is in order.
Move. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley? Aye. And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 8, request authorization to approve the notice of project change and issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed creation of 32 home ownership units, including 5 home ownership IDP units, a reduction of car parking spaces, and a relocation of bicycle storage, maintenance, and elevator facilities located at the 120 Brain Street, and to execute an affordable housing agreement and enter into a community benefit contribution agreement and to take all related actions. Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimus, and Director Shen. I'm Tyler Ross, Senior Project Manager in the Development Review Division. The proposal before you this evening is a notice of project change for the previously approved project at 120 Branch Street in Alston. The project was originally board approved in May of 2021. Today, the project is seeking a change to the ownership as well as a reduction in parking, a minor reconfiguration of the ground floor. The proposed changes entail a change in ownership to Zanzibar LLC, a reduction in parking spaces from 31 to 18 parking spaces, and additionally, the NPC proposes reconfiguring the ground floor to move the bike room from the basement to the ground floor level and relocating the trash room to the former location of the bike storage. There is no presentation for this NPC, but I am joined by the proponent's attorney, Nick Zazula, to answer any questions the board may have. Lastly, I want to say thank you to the members of the board, the public and elected officials and city agencies who helped review the proposed 120 Braintree Street notice of project change.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thanks,
Thank you.
Tyler. Item number 9. Yeah, 9. Request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed construction of 43 fully affordable home ownership units, 22 car parking spaces, and approximately 52 bicycle parking spaces located at 65 through 79 Seattle Street, and to enter into a community benefits agreement and to take all related actions. Quinn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimus, and Director Shen. My name is Quinn Balsich, and I'm here before you this evening to present the Article 80E small project located at 6579 Seattle Street in Alston. The 65 Seattle Street LLC and its manager, Urbanica Inc., after being selected by Harvard University as the developer of the project in January 2025, through a request for proposal process, proposes to develop a 48,000 square foot development that includes 43 income-restricted homeownership units across 3 buildings in Alston. 22 units will be restricted to households earning at or below 80% AMI, and 21 will be restricted to households earning at or below 100% AMI. The proposed project includes 3 buildings, Building A with 24 units, Building B with 9, and Building C with 10 units. 5 units have been made accessible to those with mobility, hearing, and visual impairments. The proponent filed their small project review application for the proposed project on October 29th, 2024. The project hosted a public meeting on January 22nd, 2025, after the comment period was extended. This meeting was very well attended and duly advertised in the local newspaper, as well as circulated to the planning department's email list for the Alston neighborhood. I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Michelle Yee, to go over the planning context considered in the review of this project before the development team begins their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. And good afternoon, Madam Chair, Secretary Polimus, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Michelle Yee, and I am the planning review team planner assigned to this project. Next slide, please. Okay. The proposed project at 65 to 79 Seattle Street is located in the Alston-Brighton neighborhood district within the Alston Landing Economic Development Area subdistrict. This portion of Seattle Street transitions between residential and institutional contexts, and this project also notably sits next to the planned Greenway development. The proposed project falls within the boundaries of the Alston-Brighton Needs Assessment, which was approved and adopted by the BPDA board in January 2024. As all proposed units will be income restricted, this is consistent with the need for accessible and affordable units found in the Alston-Brighton Needs Assessment. Additionally, other plans that were considered included the ongoing Harvard Enterprise Research Campus, or ERC District and Greenway Plan, the Beacon Park Yards Regional Framework Plan, and the Alston-Brighton Community Plan, as these plans will guide the growth in the neighborhood and the area surrounding the proposed project. Next slide, please. Zoning relief is recommended for the proposed project as it is consistent with the goals of the Alston-Brighton Needs Assessment as well as the local context, as the proposed project aligns with the massing in the area. This project will also bring many public realm improvements to the area, such as upgrading the sidewalks and streetscapes on both Seattle Street and Wyndham Street to meet complete street guidelines. Additionally, the proposed project will include a central courtyard amenity, which the proponent team will go into further detail later on, further enhancing the pedestrian and resident experience while minimizing vehicular presence. Thank you, and now I'll turn it over to the proponent team to present the project in more detail.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Chief Shen. On behalf of Urbanica, we are pleased to present 65 Seattle Street. I'm going to now turn over to my colleague, Stephen Chung, who is going to present the design.
You're not going to say anything? All right, my name is Stephen Chung, the architect, and it's nice to be back in person. So you just went over this, you went over the site. It's sort of identified in the orange there. Just to the north on that slide is asphalt, but that's going to be a park soon. So in the renderings, that's not our design, but that's something with Harvard. In the renderings, you'll see a park sort of shown. It's not our design, but I just wanted to kind of complete the picture. Okay, next. Do I control? Okay, so we're just zooming in. I was just told to give some better context, but you can sort of see the context of the Seattle Street neighborhood, sort of smaller freestanding houses, and then just to the north of that, you have your science center. That's kind of a huge kind of lawn in the science center, and then the institutional scale of Harvard. Next. And one last shot, just kind of, right now there's a plumbing supply warehouse that's no longer in use. It'll be taken down. And then right along that edge, that is that fence. And then the park that I just explained will be beyond that. And then the Harvard Science Center, you can sort of see all the way to the far right. And it's really interesting because the Seattle Street, the context is really, it's like this. I mean, there's a certain character here, freestanding 2-3-story houses, a certain kind of roof profile it's not all the same, but there is a certain sort of feeling, a character in this neighborhood that we sort of try to learn from. Next. And so this is our floor plan, and I could have explained further, but really, we really looked at the houses in Seattle Street, that neighborhood, and sort of tried to adopt a scale of a single house, but there's somehow that they're linked, almost like townhouse style. So you really do get that character, but they are linked because the buildings are bigger. They're not freestanding. I mean, this is a housing project. It's not single houses. So you'll see the architectural expression. And then the future park, that's identified there. That's what's there now. And then we'll show you renderings with what's intended in the future. And then you had mentioned, the project manager had mentioned, with working with BPDA closely, we sort of really tried to carve out this courtyard space. We have 3 buildings which wrap around this green space in the center of our development. Next. Why is that highlighted? Anyway, this is sort of highlighting the building A, we call it. It's a sort of bigger building that has an elevator. It's kind of your typical kind of apartment building. And then the 2 buildings to the south, they're sort of connected by this parking, this ground floor parking. Those are buildings B and C, and then in the middle of that is that courtyard. And the parking is something that we worked with city and neighborhood to really try to make sure that they're not visible from the street. There's approximately 0.5 per resident, so I think people thought that was a good compromise. It was pretty happy, the neighborhood and the city were happy that we were able to accommodate that. But again, it was really important just not for the cars not to be so visible from really anywhere. One goes into a garage and then you never see them. So next. And just kind of give a sense of the character. I think you sort of see this beige, pitched roof structure with a kind of metal roof. And we'll work with the city in terms of the final kind of colors and materials, but we're really trying to find a kind of residential character. So we'll sort of work on that to try to find the right balance. But on the ground floor, we have kind of some lattice work and some things which will hopefully work with some green wall and some ivy. We've done on similar projects, so really try to let the park and the greenery around it work with the architecture. Next. Aerial view on Seattle Street. So I think to the far right, you see a triple decker, and I think we're working with that kind of scale, like that's the kind of block. And then imagine those blocks are sort of stitched together or kind of linked together. The gray recesses really help to sort of each of those little blocks read. Next. And this is from the park as if the park was completed. And the park is sort of bisected by this sort of central path that just happens to we try to coordinate and work with. I mean, again, that's concept design, but really we sort of have this bridge, this kind of linkage that we then now allow people to pass through and into the complex, or let's say from our development into the park. And then that really leads directly to that courtyard, which is sort of nicely works with this plan, let's say. Next. And this is on Wyndham Street. Wyndham Street is where the neighborhood really thought a really great opportunity to create a little carve-away, a little drop-off for moving in, deliveries and so forth and so on. It's a bit of a bigger street. Seattle Street's very small. Everyone thought that this would be the best place to kind of do all of that delivery and drop-off and move-in and all that sort of business. Okay, next. And this is on the ground level, looking at the building. That's that bridge, that kind of connector piece that I had mentioned. That's a two-sided kind of lobby, glass on either side. This is, again, from the park, looking at the building. I think the scale is pretty much, I think you're understanding kind of that scale that we tried to sort of adhere to. There is a line of vegetation and then also trees as a kind of buffer along the park. For residents to have some privacy, but I mean, they overlook the park. I think is good for both, I think. Next. And this is coming, sort of walking from Seattle Street into that courtyard space. To the left is the amenity space, lobby. To the right is that outdoor courtyard space, which is sort of lined up central to that bridge I just showed you in the previous slide. So it's an outdoor area with fire pit and barbecue, and the buildings around it sort of were sculpted carefully, working with the sun to really make sure that the building is really not in shadow. I mean, it's a pretty well-lit space throughout the year, which would, again, working with the city to make sure that we could sort of show the shadow studies and so forth to make sure that was the kind of bright light space that everyone wants. Next. And that's it.
Okay, that conclude the presentation? Yeah, okay, great. We have someone from Councilor Breeden's office here that would like to speak. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Marva Crave, and I'm here representing also Brighton City Councilor Liz Braden. She apologizes that she was not able to attend the meeting herself due to a prior commitment. The council would like to express her strong support for this project proposed at 65 to 79 Seattle Street in Alston. As shown in the presentation, this project will result in 43 units of much needed income restricted homeownership opportunities available to households with incomes ranging from 80 to 100% of AMI. The council would like to highlight that creation of affordable home ownership opportunities is particularly critical in Alston, where only approximately 10% of units are owner occupied, which is one of the lowest rates in the city. Additionally, there's only currently a total of 30 existing income restricted homeownership units in the neighborhood. So she's incredibly excited to see this project move forward as it provides much needed housing. Finally, the councilor would like to say that she appreciates the extensive community outreach efforts that Urbanica has done throughout this process. They have been very responsive to any comments received from the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, just wanted to echo some of the comments made by Councilor Braden. This is a really strong project. I can't underscore enough how important it is to really prioritize affordable home ownership opportunities. So that's really wonderful to see, and great job to your team and to the city's team as well. This is going to be a great addition to our city.
Thank you. I've kind of a question more from just curiosity. How did you finance like 43 fully affordable home ownership units? I mean, I also want to see more, more of that, but just, what's the...
Absolutely. So the funding is extremely limited, and we would not be able to do it without partnership with the City of Boston. So we did apply for the 2024 fall funding round, and we were awarded our full funding ask from the Mayor's Office of Housing. So half of that is from the Mayor's Office of Housing. The other half will come from Mass Housing, the Commonwealth Builders Program. We work very closely with Mass Housing, MOH. Typically, it is about $150,000 per unit from Mayor's Office of Housing and $150,000 from Mass Housing Commonwealth Builders Fund coming together. So that's a typical formula. It's worked really well in the past with our several of our other homeownership affordable projects, but we can't stress enough, we could not do this without the funding from the Mayor's Office of Housing and Commonwealth Builders Program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of those offices who helped to bring this together and be responsive to the affordable housing crisis that we have. So, any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Item number 10, request authorization to enter into an affordable housing agreement for the proposed creation of 3 IDP homeownership units located at 9 Fuller Street and to take all related actions. Andy?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Director Shen, Secretary Polhemus, and members of the board. I'm Andy Feldman, Housing Policy Manager with the Mayor's Office of Housing. Tonight, I'm here to request your vote on an affordable housing agreement for the proposed development at 9 Fuller Street in Dorchester. This development proposes to build 14 condo units, and while it didn't trigger Article 80 due to its size, the inclusionary development policy applies to the project, as it is 10 or more units. Therefore, the vote in front of you tonight will allow the agency to enter into an agreement to dedicate 3 units under the inclusionary development policy, which I'll note is a total of 21% of units. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
But stay there. Request authorization to enter into an affordable rental housing agreement and restriction for the proposed creation of 1 on-site rental IDP unit at 308 Norwell Street and to take all related actions.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Director Shen, Secretary Polhemus, and members of the board. I'm Andy Feldman, Housing Policy Manager with the Mayor's Office of Housing. Tonight, I'm here to request your vote on an affordable rental housing agreement and restriction for the proposed development at 308 Norwell Street in Dorchester. This development proposes to build 10 rental units, and while it didn't trigger Article 80 due to its size, the inclusionary development policy applies to the project as it's 10 or more units. Therefore, the vote in front of you tonight will allow the agency to enter into an agreement to dedicate 1 unit and accept a partial unit payment under the inclusionary development policy. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much.
Item number 12, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed construction of 80 residential rental units, including 14 inclusionary zoning units and 2 voucher units located at 15 Court Square, and to enter into a pilot agreement and accept a quitclaim deed for a temporary limited interest in the 15 Court Square property and to take all related actions. Zoe.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Zoe Schutte. I'm a project assistant in development review, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Chief Shen and Director Polhemus. Project assistant in development review. I'm here before you to present an applicant of Mayor Wu's downtown office to residential conversion program. The proposed Article 80E small project is located at 15 Court Square in the downtown neighborhood of Boston, and to present the proposed 121B agreement to effectuate the downtown residential conversion incentive pilot program. On June 19th, 2024, Court Square Equity Partners LLC applied to Mayor Wu's and the Planning Department's downtown residential conversion incentive pilot program. Based on Planning Department staff review under Article 80 and review under the pilot program, the proponent has been selected to receive a pilot agreement. The proponent will, upon approval by the BPDA board, enter into a pilot agreement among the City of Boston and the BPDA. If approved today, the city and the BPDA will provide the proposed project an average tax abatement of up to 75% of the assessed residential value for a term of 29 years, terms of which are consistent with the October board vote. In order to comply with the rules and regulations under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 121B, Section 16, the BPDA must take an interest in the project site. To effectuate that, the BPDA and the owner of 15 Court Square will enter into a deed agreement which conveys limited rights in the 15 Court Square property. Additionally, the owner and the BPDA will enter into an indemnification agreement to ensure the BPDA does not have liability on the property. Next slide, please. On November 26, 2024, the Planning Department received a small project review application from the proponent. The Planning Department hosted a virtual public meeting on December 16, 2024, which was well attended and well received. The public meeting was advertised in the local newspapers, and a notice was posted on the Planning Department calendar and sent to the downtown neighborhood distribution list. The comment period ended on January 31st, 2025, and I'll now hand it over to Ted to speak to the planning context further.
Thank you, Zoe. Good afternoon, Chair Rojas, members of the boards. Ted Schwartzberg, Assistant Deputy Director for Planning Review. As noted on this slide, the planning context for this project is Plan Downtown and the Office to Residential Conversion Program. The project is located in the B10 General Business Zoning District and the Restricted Parking Overlay. And with that, that concludes the staff presentation. The proponent team is available to answer any questions the board may have related to the project.
Okay, questions or comments from the board? Yeah, no, I'm just really excited for this, to see another development that is participating in the office to residential conversion. Just super excited for that community, new community to be built there and to activate all of the great businesses around there. So, all right, if there are no other questions or comments, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Good luck. All right, item number 13. Request authorization to approve the notice of project change and issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed construction of 36 home ownership units, including 5 IDP units and 14 car parking spaces located at 151 Liverpool Street, and to take all related actions. Quinn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very efficient. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimis, and Director Shen. The proposal before you is for a notice of project change for the previously approved Article 80 small project at 151 Liverpool Street in East Boston. The proposed project change seeks to remove the below-grade parking component of the previously approved project. This will reduce the parking count from 36 to 14 vehicle parking spaces, while the project will remain approximately 39,000 square foot residential building with 36 condo units. The Planning Department held a public meeting for this expedited NPC at the request of District City Councilor Coletta on October 22nd, 2024. The meeting was well attended and had been advertised online and in the local newspaper. That concludes the presentation for this update. If the proponent is available, if the board has any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Clerk, can the public be heard on this at all, or no?
So no, there are no open, this isn't a public hearing, so we don't take any comments. But we do receive comments that are submitted through letters and comments through the agency. So unfortunately not for this, but.
One more question.
Okay, really quick, because it's totally breaking all the protocol, but.
I'm the first time I just learned about this meeting like a day ago,
Yeah.
so I apologize.
Yeah.
So you pre-review all this stuff before you make it?
Oh, gosh, yeah. We get, well, not binders full anymore, but like PDFs galore. So, no, thank you. All right, okay, where was I? Comments or questions? Is that where we were? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Item number 14, request authorization to enter into an affordable housing agreement for the proposed creation of 5 IDP home ownership units located at 279 Maverick Street, and to take all related actions. Zoe.
Thank you, and hello again, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, and Director Shen. I am here before you this evening to present the small project alteration for 279 Maverick Street. Originally approved in May 2022, the Article 80E small project is approved to include a new 5-story mixed-use building with ground floor retail and 32 residential units, 5 of which will be made affordable. Additionally, 22 vehicle parking spaces, 30 resident bike parking spaces, and 10 visitor bike parking spaces will be provided. The project will also include streetscape improvements, new landscaping, sidewalk improvements, pedestrian access, and public realm upgrades, providing a direct off-street connection from the Jeffreys Point neighborhood to the MBTA Blue Line Airport Station, East Boston Memorial Park, Raymond Street Community Park, and the Mary Ellen Welch Greenway. The project application has been filed under expedited review procedures to this change from a rental project to a condo ownership. No other changes are being proposed at this time. The notice of small project change was published to the Planning Department webpage and sent to the East Boston Neighborhood Distribution List on February 27th. Under the expedited review procedures, a public meeting may be held at request from elected officials. No public meeting was requested or held for the proposed change from rental to ownership. Thank you, and that concludes the presentation for this project.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, and happy to see additional affordable home ownership units. So thank you to the proponent. Item number 15, request authorization to approve the notice of project change and issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed reduction of parking spaces located at 1318 River Street, and to take all related actions. Ebony.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Shen. My name is Ebony DeRosa, and I'm a Senior Project Manager in the Development Review Department. We are here before you today to discuss the proposed 1318 River Street Notice of Project Change. I thank you for your time today. Originally approved in December of 2021, the project is approved to include a new 4-story building with ground floor retail, 30 rental units, 30 off-street parking spaces, and 30 bicycle parking spaces. On February 4th, 2025, the small project change was filed under expedited review to reduce the number of parking spaces from 30 to 20. No other changes to the project will be made at this time. The filing initiated a public comment period that concluded on March 6th. A public meeting was to be held upon request by public officials. No public meetings were requested or held for the proposed change from 30 to 20 parking spaces. Thank you, and that concludes my remarks. There will be no presentation this evening. However, the proponent's attorney is here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? I do have a question, and it kind of is this coupled with the one that the gentleman was asking about for. When we have the notice of project change for reductions in parking spaces and things like that, can you talk a little bit about kind of what that evaluation process is like to assess whether or not that is a change that would be appropriate?
Yep. So for this particular project, it is steps away from the commuter rail and bus station. So I think that collectively we felt a reduction in parking spaces was warranted. When this project was first under review, parking was a concern for the neighborhood, mainly because if you're familiar with the area of Hyde Park, traffic is often a concern. But I think that we felt that because the proximity to the commuter rail, bus stations, that the reduction was warranted.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Ebony. Item number 16, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed construction of approximately 5,300 square feet of retail market barn building and approximately 5,350 square feet retail market greenhouse, and 58 car parking spaces located at 259 Allendale Street, and to take all related actions. Dylan.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Chief Shen, and Secretary Polhemus. My name is Dylan Norris, and I'm a project assistant with the Development and Review Division. I'm here to present the proposed Article 80E small project located at 259 Allendale Street in the Jamaica Plain neighborhood of Boston. The proposed project proposes to upgrade the farm's existing retail facilities and existing retail greenhouse in order to provide service year-round. The project will not only improve the environmental sustainability of the project, site, and commercial structures, but also provide open space with the opportunity for program seasonally appropriate outdoor retail activities. On January 17th, 2025, the BPDA received a small project review application from the proponent. The BPDA then hosted a virtual public meeting on February 24th, 2025, which was well attended and well received. The public meeting was advertised in local newspapers, and a notice was posted on the BPDA's calendar and sent to the Jamaica Plain distribution list. The comment period on this filing ended on March 3rd, 2025. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Alana Hames, to review the planning context in which we reviewed the project. Thank you.
Thanks, Dylan. Good evening, Chair Rojas, Secretary Polhemus, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Ilana Hames, and I'm covering for LOIs as the planner assigned to this project. Next slide, please. The proposed project is located in the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood District's Conservation Protection Subdistrict. It is also within a Greenbelt Protection Overlay District, or GPOD. The CPS zoning at 259 Allendale aims to promote desirable land use and siting of development in areas with special natural or scenic features. Zoning regulations for the subdistrict support these goals by requiring significant setbacks and deference to natural features on the site. The proposed project responds to these subdistrict regulations through preservation of existing uses and limited lot coverage on site. Next slide, please. Staff review of this project was guided primarily by Article 89 and the Comprehensive Farm Review Guidelines. Ground-level farm projects located in GPOD are subject to comprehensive farm review regardless of project size. Per the Farm Review Guidelines, a ground-level farm refers to a farm located on the ground plane, including row crops, planted in the ground or raised beds, farm structures such as greenhouses, hydroponics, aquaponics, aquaculture, or other farm operations. The goal of comprehensive farm review is to ensure sensitive siting and design of farms that operate amidst residential uses, promoting good relations between residents, farmers, and agricultural operations at the appropriate neighborhood scale. After board approval and Zoning Board of Appeal approval of the required zoning relief, the proposed project will continue in design review at BPDA. At the Boston Planning Department. That is an old line in my script. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to the team to present the project in more detail.
Thank you, Chair Rojas and Mr. Shen, Director Shen, and board members. My name is Barry Fogel. I'm an attorney with Keegan Werlin. I'm here today with Helen Glotzer, who is the CEO of Allendale Farm. We're pleased to present this project on Allendale Street, which is the front of the area of the farm where the retail activities have been going on for many decades. There's an old greenhouse and with a structure, can we change the slide? There might be an image of that. If you keep going, it's probably easier to work off the images. So that's an aerial view. That helps you right there. Allendale Street, the view on the left is looking west, and the view on the right is looking from the northwest, looking southeast. That is a pond, a farm pond, that's behind the area where the greenhouses, hoop greenhouses, and the retail activities went on. If you could go to the next slide. That's the current view of it from Allendale Street. So those structures to the left behind those two cars is really where the retail, sort of farm sales activities have gone on. That stone wall will remain in place. There'll be landscaping added to that parking lot. It's not being increased to 58 parking spots. There's pretty much the same number, but they're going to refinish that with the stormwater improvements that are going to take place so that there'll be better markings and the parking will be more efficient. If you'd go to the next slide. That's the aerial view. That dark structure that looks like a staple is the building that's going to come down, and the hoop greenhouses behind it in front of the pond. That's where there are going to be 2 new buildings on the same footprint. If you go to the next slide, and that shows you on the left is the market barn, on the right is a retail greenhouse, and then there's much better improved spacing around the front of that in separation from the parking so that the farm's activities for staging mulch or Christmas trees or seasonal products can be away from where the pedestrians and visitors are. There are some, that's the Brookline municipal boundary on the left. You can see that line running north-south. Next slide. So that's the architectural design of the market barn and the greenhouse on the right from different elevations. It's going to sort of obviously capture and keep the same feeling of the farm, but be much more attractive on the Allendale Street side, you know, the Greenbelt overlay. It's going to maintain and enhance the scenic nature of the drive. And the next slide will give you that's the elevation view of what it's going to look like. The project has proposed a improvement to the public realm through a crosswalk to bring pedestrians from the sidewalk that's on the south side of Allendale Street across into the property. And it's going to be much improved in that way. If you wanted to go to the original first slide, I think that would probably be the end of our comments. There's the one with the 3 bars, that one there. So we've listed here for you the construction cost estimate. We're really revitalizing in the same footprint, about 10,650 square feet. It's going to create a significant number of construction jobs, but also makes it possible for the retail operation to be year-round, which makes more year-round jobs for the folks working in that part of the farm. I mentioned the pedestrian crossing. Everything about improving this will enhance ADA access and the availability of products, as I say, year-round. From a sustainability standpoint, there will be solar on the roof of the market barn. There'll be EV charging stations for vehicles, much improved stormwater management and compliance with Mass DEP standards, and no impacts to the farm pond or the vegetated wetland to the east of that parking area. We can answer any questions you may have, but we would appreciate your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
I'll start, and this is probably for Helen. One of the things that I know my fellow board members and I take into consideration in evaluating projects are the impact on abutters. So there's 2 very important direct abutters who happen to be the 2 most popular people in Jamaica Plain, or two most popular living animals in Jamaica Plain. Curtis and Willard, of course, I'm talking about. No, I'm kidding. I have to tell you, I am so excited about this. I think you folks have the first development project in the history of Jamaica Plain that has 100% support. This is something we have all been waiting for. This will be so exciting. It's been a long time. I actually was a big fan of the old market. I'm glad to see something new. I know it's been tough, but this is really exciting. I have a 4-year-old. We visit Curtis and Willard at least twice a week all year round, so we'll be very excited to see this progress. And I guess my only question is, how many EV spots are you planning on bringing in? Because this is probably the highest proportion of...
I think it's 4. I
4,
believe
yeah.
it's 4, yeah.
This is probably the only parking lot in Boston where there's usually a majority of EVs as opposed to...
It's true, it's true, they'll be well utilized, yeah. And
No.
Curtis and Willard's barn is getting slightly relocated. I don't know if you could see it in that image, but relocated and improved. And we
Improved.
hope there'll be better access too for visitors.
And when are the chickens coming back? Because we
Probably not until we're all the way through this, but then, yeah.
Understood, because we were looking for Lilith and everyone else,
Yeah.
Dama and Drama
Oh my
as
gosh,
well.
you really know, that's
I've been going to
deep
Allendale Farm
information,
since I was 4 years old, so I am so excited. Congratulations on a
That's
great
wonderful,
project.
thank you.
So if there are no chickens, that means, are there eggs?
No. Not from our farm.
No, too soon, because I wanted to know if the price of eggs were up or down.
Right.
Well, I've aged out of visiting Curtis and Willard, but I will still say that Allendale Farm is a beloved institution, and it's great to see this level of investment and, kind of commitment to the future of the farm.
Many thanks, and that's exactly, I appreciate you saying that. We are really hoping to have another 60 years plus as good as the last have been. So, yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, you've been doing great work for decades, and you're much beloved. And I think everyone on the board is just thrilled to have the opportunity to support this work.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to hear. Very much appreciated.
Great. And again, just echoing, thank you. And I'm just really glad that we have something like this as a part of our city's ecosystem and, not only for educating, but also for just reconnecting to nature and farming and all the great things that you guys do. So thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for acknowledging that stewardship. We take it really seriously. So yeah, it's really core to everything that we do.
Yeah,
appreciate
feel
that.
that, yeah.
This has been a wonderful process for us interacting with the various city departments and just to feel that appreciation and support. So thank you all for that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, if there are no other further questions or comments, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Oh, what? Huh?
What?
We have a representative. Oh, okay.
Sorry,
it's okay.
sorry to hold you guys up. I know this is you got a busy agenda, but hi, my name is Jordan. I work for Councilor Weber as his Director of Policy and Communications. He apologizes for not being here. He's a District 6 councilor. Just want to go on record in support of this proposal. As you've heard, it's been loved project by many, so just wanted to let you know that we support it, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck.
May I just thank you for the staff work on this was extremely helpful. Dylan and the other folks have been just great.
Thank you. Appreciate that feedback. Good job, team. Okey dokey. Item number 17. Woohoo, Metapan. Request authorization to approve the updated site plan as an exhibit to the First Amendment of the Olmsted Village Smart Growth Development Plan, presented to and approved by the BPDA on August 15th, 2024, amending the Smart Growth Development Plan for the Olmsted Village Subdistrict pursuant to sections 87-11, and revise and correct a Scrivener's error in Section 2 of the First Amendment to the development plan, and to take all related actions. Quinn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimis, and Director Shen. The proposal before you is for an update to the board, update for the board to a previously approved Article 80 large project known as Olmsted Village in Mattapan. The project and an associated smart growth development plan were originally approved by the board in February 2023 and subsequently amended through an approval at the August 2024 board meeting. Due to a clerical error, the updated site plan as presented, can we go to the next slide, please? The updated site plan as presented and approved was not included in the First Amendment to the development plan board-approved record. This update to the board will allow the site plan to be part of that officially approved board record. Additionally, as we were seeking to address this oversight, it was found that there was also a Scrivener's error in what was presented to the board at that August meeting. The Harvard Street building was incorrectly recorded as containing 36 units rather than 34 shown in the documentation, so that's corrected as well. That's really it for this presentation, but I'm here to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Quinn.
Thank you.
Item number 18. Request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed construction of 48 fully affordable homeownership units, 13 car parking spaces, 48 bicycle parking spaces, 2,000 square feet of retail space, and approximately 28,000 square feet of public open space, including a community garden located at 77 Terrace Street and 778 through 796 Parker Street, and to enter into a community benefits agreement and to take all related actions. Quinn.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimis, and Director Shen. I'm here before you this evening to present the Article 80 small project at 77 Terrace Street in Mission Hill. The proposed project's located on the combined property of 77 Terrace and 778 through 796 Parker Street. ODJ Development proposes to redevelop the site in partnership with the Mayor's Office of Housing and the Boston Department of Parks and Recreation by consolidating the 11 parcels within it and subsequently subdividing them into 3 parcels for 3 components of the overall project. The first is the construction of a 5-story building containing 48 income-restricted homeownership residential units, approximately 2,000 square feet of ground floor retail, and 13 off-street parking spaces upon an approximately 29,000 square foot parcel. The second is the development of a public open space area for recreation on an approximately 15,000 square foot parcel. And the third is the development of a community garden upon an approximately 12,000 square foot parcel. The proponent filed their small project review application for the proposed project on September 20th, 2024. The project hosted a public meeting on November 18th, 2024, after the comment period was extended. The meeting was very well attended and supportive of the project in the iterations shown today, and duly advertised in the local newspaper, as well as circulated to the planning department's email list for the Mission Hill neighborhood. This is also the project that Councilor Durkin previously spoke in support of. I'll now turn it over to the zoning compliance reviewer for Del Vecchio to go over the planning context, consider the review of the project before the proponent begins their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Quinn. Good evening, Chair Rojas, Secretary Polimas, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Ford Del Vecchio, and I am the planner assigned to this project. The proposed project spans combined properties at 77 Terrace Street and 778 to 796 Parker Street in the Mission Hill neighborhood. The component at 77 Terrace Street falls within a local industrial zoning subdistrict and will include 44 affordable home ownership condominium units and 2,704 square feet of ground floor retail space, while 778 to 796 Parker Street, located in a 3F 3000 zoning subdistrict, will be reserved for open space use. Specifically, 778 to 786 Parker Street will become a community garden, while 790 to 796 Terrace Street will preserve an existing park in Urban Wild. This layout reflects the fact that this project straddles 2 zoning districts that share a combined planning context. This will help to bridge the gap between Terrace Street and Parker Street. The Parker Street context consists primarily of 3- and 4-story residential buildings, while Terrace Street is an evolving mix of multifamily residential, commercial, and retail uses. The proposed project is well served by transit, with service provided by the MBTA's Roxbury Crossing Orange Line station, as well as the 19, 22, and 66 bus routes. Next slide, please. Developed in partnership with the Mayor's Office of Housing and the Boston Department of Parks and Recreation, on public land, the project aims to set a positive precedent for the evolving residential corridor along Terrace Street. Notably, all residential units in the new building will be income restricted. The proposed project will deliver open space and a mixed-use development that was carefully scaled and designed to align with Mission Hill's neighborhood's needs. In shaping the building's design, particular attention was given to the surrounding built environment, ensuring the structure complements both of the street frontages of the site. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to the development team to present in more detail.
Good evening, Madam Chair and the board. This is an exciting one to be able to present. My name is Kevin McGuire. I'm one of the members of ODJ, and Jonathan Garland, who is the founder of JGE, is also a development partner on this particular project. This is a collection of 11 City of Boston parcels which have been vacant for about 40 years. I believe we are the 4th team to be designated to try and take this project on. It was the Terrace Street. If you go back to the early 1900s, it was the Union Brewery, which was collapsed in place. The neighborhood suffered a tremendous amount of disinvestment through the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And just now, particularly the Terrace Street corridor is about to come roaring back. I think there's about 300 units of already permitted market rate residential units. So part of our objective here is to working with a lot of different city agencies. This is a 100% public project. So it's the Parks Department, it's the planning staff, it's certainly the Mayor's Office of Housing. And part of our objective is to bring ownership housing, but it's also to try and plant a seed for the infrastructure in converting an industrial street or an industrial neighborhood into a residential neighborhood. So if you will quickly run through the slides. So maybe next slide. These are the existing conditions. Again, bottom right is Parker Street. I'm sorry, is Terrace Street. It's about a 20-foot wide, two-way street. The sidewalks are about 5 feet wide, which is industrial scale, not necessarily ready for pedestrians or families to be traversing. The bottom left slide shows Again, that same sidewalk condition, and also a new 5-story condominium building that was recently built to the left. The upper slide is actually Parker Street, which is the old workforce neighborhood, very much of a student neighborhood, but also an ownership neighborhood at the top of the hill. Next slide. So Jonathan, I'm going to let you come in and take us through here. So there's a tremendous grade change, and we can go through these quickly. You're probably, unless you want to stop me on the details of it. There's about a 40-foot grade change between Terrace Street and Parker Street. So mitigating the grades, dealing with some of the retaining walls are some of the challenges that are inherent in the project. Next slide. Here you see the different uses. So again, combining 11 parcels, creating, building out the different infrastructure, the open space, the community garden, and then ultimately the residential housing, and then subdividing it all out. When all is said and done, we will have no interest in the property. The open space parcel will be transferred over to the Parks Department. The community garden will be transferred to the trustees of the reservation, trustees who are administering the community garden, and ultimately the development will have 48 homeowners who we will work with to, formulate their association, but they ultimately will be the owners in the property. Next slide. Interest in going through all the specifics of the building? Yep, okay, Jonathan, go ahead, I'll let you go.
I'll make it quick. Good afternoon, everyone, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, and Director Shen. So this is the ground floor plan. One of the things you may have seen on the previous site section is that the project negotiates about a 35-foot grade change from Terrace at the low end, Parker at the high end, so you're sort of seeing earth, natural earth at the northern end of this map. Down at the south, working up, there's about a 2,000 square foot block of commercial space along Terrace Street. And then we also have the residential lobby. We have some other service spaces, trash rooms, bike rooms, things like that at this floor. Next slide. You're sort of seeing two plans on this spread, but to the left is 13 parking spaces that are effectively at the second floor. It's kind of a mid-level within that terracing grade change. And then we're also creating opportunities for some home ownership units that would look out along Terrace Street. So it's a partial parking, partial living floor. And then we have more of a typical floor plate on the right-hand side. Next slide. Elevations, as was mentioned, we are trying to work within the character of the neighborhood. So we have a building that modulates scale between the Mississippi building on the left and sort of the buff brick color, as well as some 3 and 4 building, story building stock in Mission Hill on the right. Within our elevation, you can see the ground level commercial space, which will have vibrant, active transparency and glazing, and then a series of punch windows for the building, the residential building. Next slide. This is sort of a vignette from Terrace Street. You're seeing the existing building context to the right-hand side, and then our building, how it sort of weaves in to the neighboring context. And we're looking at a fiber cement material in the gray, as well as some accent warm wood tones that sort of emulate residential bay windows. Next slide. This is an opposite angle view still along Terrace Street, looking northbound toward the city, the Mississippi building on the left, and then you're seeing our building in the context there. Aside from the building, we're also proposing to enhance the public realm with new street trees, both along Terrace and within the site. Next slide. This is more of a straight-on shot where hopefully you get more of the character of the building. It will be Passive House certified, which is something we're really excited about. So a nice tight envelope, great daylight and views that bring light into the units, and you're seeing the balance between living rooms and bedrooms with the window arrangement. And then right there in the foreground is more of a residential open space that helps to negotiate between the public realm and a space for residents where they can feel private and outdoor, enjoy some outdoor space. Next slide. As far as some of the landscape concepts, this is up at the higher end of the site along Parker. You can see the open space concepts. It really is meant to be very passive in nature and something that really embraces the natural setting. We're looking to retain a number of the existing mature trees on the site and really work within the topography, but also capture unique moments like an overlook to Fort Hill, given our elevation and great views out to Fort Hill. Next slide. And then this is a view of the upper level along Parker Street, where we're able to change from a 5-story building on Terrace to more of a 3-story building on Parker, and that's part of that 35-foot grade change between high to low. We're taking this shot within the context of the community garden. This is something that was really applauded by the Mission Hill neighborhood to sort of extend this idea of urban farming and fresh produce in the neighborhood. So this is really like a housing plus project for us in terms of the open space component. Next slide. And then finally, I won't read through these, but we're really excited to bring this number of benefits to the project, not just housing, but also jobs, community benefits, and sustainability, as we mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
Yes, through the chair. I definitely like the design, that street was always a very dark, tight industrial street. And, just to see like the offset of the building a little bit so you don't feel the encroachment too much on the sidewalk, because those are very narrow sidewalks, both sides. It's a two-way street that could have been a one-way in a sense, And then I'm glad that I remember from the last developer that was developing this project, they implemented the garden as well. And I'm glad to see that that was kept.
Yeah.
So I definitely like the project. I think it'd be a nice addition to the Mission Hill, Terrace Street area. So
Thank you.
I do commend you guys on your efforts. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to see all affordable homeownership. This is our second project tonight that's 100% affordable homeownership, and it's really heartening to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
What kind of commercial activity do you envision there on Terrace Street?
Still in conversation. We're looking at various nonprofit, mission-driven organizations. I think in many respects, we likely have ruled out food and beverage or retail. We just don't think the visibility along Terrace Street would be suitable, but we are working hard to work within folks that are in the neighborhood and have sort of a mission-driven component and understanding, that Terrace is a street that doesn't have much on-street parking, so we just want to make sure that the use is conducive to making sure they're successful over the long term.
Through the chair, it is in the area of a lot of artsy, people, maybe some type of art thing down there, but to your discretion.
Thank you for that.
Additional questions or comments? Again, connection to community, connection to the earth, reconnection, can't, more important now than more than ever, right?
Right.
Okay, so there are no other further questions or comments. Motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thanks so much. Good luck.
So much.
Take care. Do we do one more? Yeah, okay. Item number 19, request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving further review pursuant to Article 80B of the zoning code for the proposed construction of a mixed-use life sciences building, ground floor commercial space, and 122 car parking spaces located at 17 Bradston Street, and to execute a cooperation agreement and to take all related actions. Ebony.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Shen. We are here before you today to discuss the proposed 17 Bradston Street project. I thank you for your time today. The proposed project consists of the construction of a zoning-compliant 8-story mixed-use commercial, life sciences, and light industrial building, which will be topped with a mechanical penthouse. The building will contain approximately 270,000 square feet of gross floor area and will include approximately 122 off-street accessory parking spaces. The project notification form was filed on November 2nd of 2021. IAG meetings were held on December 14th of 2021 and January 5th, 2022, and a public meeting was held on January 11th, 2022. On January 24th, 2025, the proponent submitted a project update detailing final design changes to the proposed project and additional details on the proposed project's strategies for transportation and mitigation. A joint IAG and public meeting was held on March 5th regarding the updated materials. At this time, I am happy to turn it over to Ted Schwartzberg from the planning team to discuss the planning context for the project, followed by a presentation from the development team. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebony. Next slide, please. Good afternoon, Chair Rojas, members of the board. I presented Plan New Market to you in August 2023. You adopted the plan at the time, and then subsequently zoning was adopted by the board and the Zoning Commission in early 2024. As you may recall, the plan identifies New Market as a vital industrial area of Boston that should have its key industrial uses preserved and enhanced. In the zoning map on the right, starting at the east on the right side, closest to the regional highway network, is the core industrial zone where zoning regulations are tailored to traditional industrial uses, including distribution and food-related businesses. To the south, on the edge of Roxbury and Dorchester, is the nascent creative industrial or arts industrial zone. And finally, zooming to the edge of New Market that is closest to the south end is the gateway industrial zone at the top of this map. And we'll zoom in on the next slide, please. In this area, zoning dimensions and uses are most permissive, seeking to code for the industrial neighborhood of tomorrow. That's a place where cutting-edge research takes place under the same roof as industrial uses that planners can't even conceive of today, and this is the sub-district where 17 Bradston is located. Staff are pleased to report to the board that 17 Bradston Street exemplifies all of these attributes in its adherence to the new zoning regulations that were implemented last year as part of the recent planning process. On that note, I'll turn it over to the proponents to present their proposal in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ebony and Ted. I'm Don Wiest with the Boston firm of Dane Torpy, here on behalf of the project proponent, City Realty. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, Director Shen. Well, first, let me start. So City Realty is represented by Josh Fetterman here today. In a moment, I'll turn the presentation over to our design lead, Jim Rohnstock from Embark. Before doing so, I'd like to direct the board to the fact that this project is almost uniquely location sensitive and to highlight three ways in which the project successfully responded to that location. The first issue is one of use. This is a predominantly life sciences project, and we all know that this is a use that very strongly clusters. Famously, there's a cluster of life sciences uses in Kendall Square in Cambridge. In Boston, we have the LMA, we have the Seaport. There's also a cluster around Boston University Medical Center surrounding healthcare, research uses, et cetera. That's an enormous strength of the project, that proximity. At the same time, the project site is across the highway connector within the New Market region. And this is the heart of the city's distribution, construction-related industries. And so this project unusually combines life sciences office use upstairs with high bay industrial space on the ground floor. The second way in which the project has responded to this unique site is in design. We made a representation early on to the neighborhood. We knew we were at a very visually prominent site that jumps out on the cover page image here. And we pledged to respond to that with a really striking building with very high quality architecture. We can't take all the credit for that. We work closely with the planning staff, Ted and his colleagues, and also with urban design staff and BCDC, but the end result is a very handsome building we feel really meets the moment here at this prominent corner. And then finally, location-wise, this is a part of town that has had a tough go in recent years. It can use a shot in the arm with some new investment. And we've been gratified to have a very successful partnership with the New Market Business Association. Sue Sullivan in particular is our lead partner there. We've also been gratified. There's been a lot of outreach by even kind of more far-flung residential neighbors in the area who've been very supportive of the project. We've had good attendance at meetings. And so the partnership around the project's been very successful. Finally, we would be remiss if we did not thank our exceedingly professional project manager, Ebony DeRosa. Ebony, thank you so much for all your work on the project. With that, I'll turn over the presentation to Jim Rohnstock of Embark. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Secretary Chen, and members of the board. As Don represented here, the project is at the corner of Bradston and Southampton at the entrance to the Newmarket Gateway Industrial District. The project consists of an 8-story building with 6 stories of lab office space over 2 high bay industrial spaces with 2 underground garage levels below that. Next slide, please. As we said, this just shows the context of the site itself, located at the Gateway Industrial District, and it gives you a glimpse at some of the existing buildings and context around the site. Next slide. This shows the context of the building itself, not only as a member of the Newmarket Industrial District with the off to the right and above the sheet, but also its proximity to the Boston Medical Center in the yellow towards the left of the slide. Gives you an idea of the height and scale of the building and how the building will act as a gateway to the district itself in the future. Next slide. Just a brief glimpse at the circulation studies that have been done throughout the site, showing not only the pedestrian access to and from the site, up and down Mass Ave, for instance, from the medical center, but also some of the vehicular and loading access to the building, to the underground garage spaces, and a dedicated loading dock area to the rear of the site. Next slide. Next few slides are really the landscape and the public realm aspects of the project. Well, we've worked together closely with the Newmarket guidelines to produce and incorporate a landscape design that takes advantage of not only the regulations to help mitigate the heat island effect in the building, which is in the site, which is predominantly just paved areas and industrial complexes, but by utilizing tree canopies, vegetated areas, plazas, sidewalk trees, et cetera, to really incorporate the building into the site, as you can see here. Next slide. A little more detailed site plan that shows the integration of components to help with the heat island effect, cool pavings, bioretention areas, stormwater drainage, stormwater planters, et cetera, in and around the site, along with the 15% tree canopy aspect of the site itself, which currently really only has 1 or 2 trees. Next slide, please. More detailed review of the landscape and the entry plaza off of Southampton Street. The building has been oriented so that the main entrance to the building faces not only Southampton, but the main intersection at Mass Ave Connector and Southampton. The building is also located in a flood resiliency district, so the first floor of the building is approximately 2 feet higher than the sidewalk, which allowed us to create an entry plaza that not only faces the intersection and welcomes people to the site, but creates an interesting element where we can incorporate and integrate the trees, accessible entrances, an outdoor plaza that can be used for in and out of the building itself, but also as a welcoming aspect to the building. And it also allows us to create a few sculptural elements in and around the ramps and so forth that you're seeing at the top of the slide, predominantly like a concrete or precast element that creates a sculptural element and creates a nice welcoming aspect to the building itself. Next slide, please. This slide just very quickly shows the floor elevation change from the sidewalk to the first floor being approximately 2 foot higher. Gives you an idea of the scale of the building. The opportunity to set the building a little bit back on the sidewalk and allow for sidewalk trees all up and down, not only Southampton, but where it's showing here along Bradston Street as well, and incorporation of a blue bake station as well. Next slide, please. The next few slides are some visuals of the building itself. This is similar to the slide you saw earlier, showing the building and how it sits at the gateway to the industrial district. Again, it's an 8-story building with the penthouse up above it, and it sits at the corner of Southampton and Bradston, so it's a kind of a welcoming gatepost to the community, to that district itself. And as you can see to the left of the slide, the Boston Medical Center and some future developments that have already been approved along Albany Street, et cetera. Next slide, please. This gives you an idea from essentially Melnay Cass, looking back towards the entrance of the building. Gives you a good idea of how the building is oriented and how it is oriented towards that intersection in a welcoming manner so that the lobby entrance is directly off of that. So it takes advantage of the circulation paths in and around the neighborhood and faces onto and welcomes to the neighborhood and the district. It also shows the integration of the materials as well. The district itself is predominantly brick, low-slung buildings, so the industrial nature of the building, the first 2 floors of the high bay industrial space are represented, you'll see this in the coming slides, is represented in a brick interpretation of the building, while the rest of the building kind of speaks to a modern industrial take of the building itself by its nature of metal panels, glass, et cetera, and extending all the way up to the penthouse level as well. Next slide, please. This gives you a good depiction of the entrance and the plaza itself. So you can see to the left, the brick announcing the industrial spaces on the first 2 floors, and then the metal and glass elements of the building extending up from there in kind of technology-driven design of the building. So it's a welcoming aspect to the plaza itself with a number of trees, plant areas, and outdoor seating areas, and sculptural elements as well, welcoming you into the main lobby serving the building. But you can also see on the second floor some indication of the industrial spaces that can be located on those levels. So it's very open and very inviting to the public. Next slide, please. This is a view across the Mass Ave connector and Bradston Street looking towards the building. And again, you'll see the industrial base of the building, the parking garage entrance, and you can just see the alley leading back towards the private loading dock area. The dock area, should mention, has been designed so that it's front-in only trucks. So whether it be a box truck or a trailer truck, they will drive in to the front, unload on the loading dock, and come out to the front, so there's no disruption or minimal disruption to the street traffic itself. Next slide. A view across Southampton Street looking at the building and the car wash next door. Again, most of the slides depict the brick base of the building representing the neighborhood district itself and how the building tends to step down a little bit towards the neighborhood and the district. Next slide. I'll speak faster. Another view, this is a close-in view of the plaza along Southampton Street and leading to the plaza, the element, and the industrial component of the building. Next slide, please. A view from further down on Southampton Street, looking back towards the medical center and the building itself, and you'll see how the building steps down a little bit. At the top, you'll see an open terrace area for the tenants within the building to take advantage of. Next slide, please. A brief indication of the facade materials, the height of the building. Again, as Don said, it's a as-of-right building, 8 stories, 140 feet tall, brick at the bottom, metal and glass at the top for the lab and office spaces. Next slide. It just gives you an idea of the overall scale and section through the building. Next slide, please. The building will be designed with a green building approach, with energy-efficient design, working towards achieving LEED Gold certifiability, as well as meeting all the climate resiliency requirements from the city and the planning department. Next. Again, just further information on the climate resiliency design aspects of the building. Next slide, please. And just a brief summary of some of the community benefits that have been worked together with the city. And if there's any questions, I'm sure we'd be happy to answer. Thank you very much. I made it.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
What's your completion date?
Josh, you might want to answer that.
Hello, Josh Fetterman with City Realty. Thank you for having us tonight. Right now, we're tracking a start of about 18 months, 18 to 24 months from now, and expect kind of ramp up pre-construction and build time just over 2 years. So that's putting us out about 4 to 5 years from now.
Yes, through the chair. We are fortunate to live in Boston, the greater Boston, where life science has been booming for 10 to 15 years. But at the present moment, I myself, and correct me if I'm mistaken, I see life science buildings have it's been a little saturated, and we have a lot of core and shell buildings with no tenants. Do you have an anchor tenant proposed maybe for this project?
No, not yet. It's been a lengthy process working with the planning department and the neighborhood and community groups. So now at this stage, we'll move towards both marketing and our construction document. But luckily in this area and the adjacency to the medical center, we see, it may not be your traditional lab tenant where there's a great opportunity for medical support, research, and just having the flexibility of being in the commercial district. We're hopeful to find good anchor tenants here.
Yes, we have the best colleges, the best hospitals in greater Boston, so definitely. And I think also, on a very positive note, I think it would be a great gateway to the area, and it could be the staple in the beginning to much needed change for the area. So I hope all goes well.
I do have a couple questions. So as it's a life sciences building, can you speak a little bit to kind of the types of accommodations and things that you have to make because it is a life sciences building, and go into a little bit of what level of lab and all of that stuff that you're planning on?
Okay. If I understand the question correctly, the building is designed so it's no more than a biosafety level 2 lab.
Okay.
And the building itself, as far as accommodations for the laboratory, those of you who are aware of laboratories or hospitals, they have a great deal of equipment on the roof typically and a great deal of equipment on the first floor. So the equipment is spread throughout the building to serve the tenants themselves. So at the roof level is a small penthouse enclosure up there, as well as rooftop exposed equipment as well that would be screened by the screen wall. So it's incorporated throughout the building at every level. It's quite complicated, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I'm not sure how the community process went, but I do know that a lot of neighborhoods are kind of wary of life sciences buildings, next to them. So just encourage you to keep in contact with the community, should this be approved, and and just education, right? Give people assurances and to understand who their new neighbors are going to be, and what are the risks. But that's been really important. We've been asking a lot of the developers to do so.
Great point.
One last question, which I'll probably embarrass myself in front of my colleague here. But what is iron spot brick?
Oh, it's essentially a black brick with a little fleck in it.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost like metallic.
Okay. And was it but it's still brick.
Oh yeah, it's still brick, and it's used quite a bit in Boston.
Okay.
Frankly.
And the iron is just the color. That's why
The iron spot.
the iron part.
Oh,
of
it's
it
like
is just,
iron particles. It gives a little fleck to it. That's all.
Okay. Just curious.
It's really nice looking.
Yeah. All right. Any further questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you
Congratulations.
very
Good
much.
luck. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break before we start our public hearing. So we'll see you all at the 45 mark. D-5 of the Boston Zoning Code to consider the proposed 2025 through 2035 Harvard University Allston Campus Institutional Master Plan. This hearing was duly advertised on February 25th, 2025 in the Boston Herald. This is a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency. Staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, anyone who wishes to testify about the proposed project will be afforded an opportunity. We are taking support and opposition at the same time. If you're planning to testify via Zoom, please take time now to verify that your computer microphone is active and click on the hand icon on your Zoom control panel. This will signal to the staff that you would like to speak, and when your hand is raised, it will be blue. If you're calling into the meeting and would like to testify, please dial *9 to raise your hand. When I call for all testimony, staff will announce your name and allow you to talk. You must unmute your microphone and your webcam will not be active. If you're planning to testify in person in the boardroom, please line up behind the podium after the presentation is concluded and we will call on you. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please kindly conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for a rebuttal if they so desire. And Quinn will now begin the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimas, and Director Shen. The proposal before you is the proposed 10-year institutional master plan for Harvard University's Allston campus. The proposed IMP includes 6 proposed institutional projects, or PIPs, totaling approximately 720,000 square feet of new construction and approximately 140,000 square feet of renovation. 3 of the PIPs are being carried over from the previous IMP, while 3 are new to this IMP. The Harvard team can tell you more about those as they begin the presentation, but one is a catering facility and the other 2 are both athletics facilities. The IMP is accompanied by a significant mitigation package, the community benefits package, highlighted by ongoing operations of the Harvard Ed Portal, ice time opportunities for local youth hockey teams, a study to evaluate future opportunities for Harvard to provide land for affordable housing, as they did with the 65 Seattle Street project that we heard earlier tonight, support for parks and open space in the neighborhood, and funding for ongoing operations of the Harvard Partnership Fund, which provides $200,000 a year grants to community groups that this board will be reviewing and approving later on tonight as well. 6 joint task force and public meetings were held by the Boston Planning Department between January 2024 and March of 2025. They were all advertised online in local newspapers and well attended. I want to thank our team here at the Planning Department, members of the Harvard Allston Task Force, some of who are here tonight, and note that Councilor Braden's office is also in support and has been involved in review of this project, and thank them all for their time and efforts. I'll now turn it over to my colleague Michelle Yee to review the planning context considered in the review of this project, and then we'll hand off to the Harvard team. Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. Good evening, Chair Rojas, Secretary Polimas, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Michelle Yee, and I am the Planning Review Team Planner assigned to this project. Next slide, please. Okay. The proposed 2025 to 2035 Institutional Master Plan, or IMP for short, for the Harvard University Allston campus sits near several ongoing planning initiatives that will shape the surrounding area at different scales. For example, as part of the replacement of the I-90 interchange, the Beacon Park Yard Regional Framework Plan will have a regional impact, while the ongoing Allston-Brighton Community Plan will influence the neighborhood level. Additionally, the projects under Article 80 review will bring changes on a local scale alongside the Harvard Enterprise Research Campus, or ERC, District and Greenway Plan. Together, these planning initiatives will guide growth in the neighborhood and the surrounding area, working with the community to establish a shared vision and key priorities. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, this area has seen numerous planning initiatives over time. To help visualize that, this map highlights the various planning efforts with the IMP area marked in red. As the campus pursues the 2025 to 2035 IMP, it is important to continue to consider these planning initiatives to ensure alignment and coordination. Thank you, and now I'll turn it over to the university's team to present the project in more detail.
Thank you both, and good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Secretary Polimas, and Director Shen. My name is Mark Handley. I'm delighted to be here tonight on behalf of Harvard University to overview very briefly our 10-year IMP proposal, and also hand in hand with our 10-year IMP proposal, our proposal for community benefits attached to that 10-year period. We will get now straight into the planning. I will be back to talk about benefits after this part of the presentation, and then we'll look forward to your questions. And thank you so much. And thank you to my 2 task force members who also are present here, not to mention the staff who has gotten us this far. We really appreciate it. Alexandra Affiong is the Director of Planning Services at Harvard.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Shen. I'm Alexandra Affiong from Harvard University Planning and Design, and I'm delighted to be here to present the Alston Campus IMP for Harvard University. So this is a campus with a very long history. It began with a land gift from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in 1870, and the construction of the Harvard Stadium back in 1903. Since that time, the campus has been evolving. It is today a dynamic, multifaceted campus that hosts a range of uses. First and foremost, it's a hub of teaching and learning. It's home to Harvard Business School and the Science and Engineering Complex. It's a place of innovation with the iLab and the Life Lab. Its athletic facilities support more than 40 Division I intercollegiate sports teams. It's also a place of arts and culture with the Art Lab, as well as the future home of the American Repertory Theater. And finally, it's a place to live. It's a residential campus with more than 1,700 units of housing for affiliates, with more in the pipeline. So to orient you briefly geographically, you can see the IMP area outlined in the black hatched line. And this is a campus that is bounded roughly on 3 sides by the Charles River and the Soldiers Field Road. It's bisected by 2 main streets, North Harvard Street and Western Avenue. And you can see all of the range of uses that I just alluded to are in the color coding. So it's a very dynamic campus. Next slide, please. So the IMP has been guided by campus planning principles that Harvard has established in order to ensure that all of our planning and design decisions align not only with the university's larger goals, but also the neighborhood planning context and the city's regulatory context. So these principles include things such as respecting community context, fostering a welcoming campus, respecting campus character, strengthening the connectivity within the campus, preserving open space, strengthening sustainability, and being a good steward to our campus. Next slide, please. So the IMP reports on a number of key planning issues to ensure that we're taking a comprehensive and an integrated approach to our campus planning. I'll give you just a few highlights. Open space, for example, is we have an extensive open space network on campus, and in the IMP, we did an analysis and an inventory of that network. We looked at campus accessibility, and we reported on how we are managing responsibly our tree inventory of more than 2,500 campus trees. In terms of mobility, we reported on a lot of our transportation programs, infrastructure, and overall approach, including many recent investments in sustainable transportation for pedestrians, bikes, and shuttles. We reported on our robust commuter choice program that incentivizes sustainable commuting to campus, as well as all the coordination that we are doing with all of the ongoing transportation planning in the area. In terms of sustainability, Harvard University is guided by the Sustainability Action Plan, which has laid out the priorities and vision and goals that the university is taking to address climate, equity, and health. So the overarching goal that Harvard is pursuing is to be fossil fuel neutral by 2026 and fossil fuel free by 2050. And we talked a lot about the many efforts that are going into meeting those goals, everything from the electrification of the shuttle fleet to the sustainable building standards to our on-site renewable energy. Next slide. So this is a view that shows the longer-term vision of the Harvard Alston campus. which we thought was important to create to ensure that the 10-year PIPs align with the future patterns of development and the framework for our campus systems. So there is a lot of analysis that goes behind this, but I think just to explain this slide, you can see the existing buildings are shown in white, whereas the PIPs are shown in the red or the dark pink. And the lighter pink expresses the vision of a fully built-out campus. It's very pale on the screen, but that is the future, the vision for future development. Next slide. But getting back to the 10-year plan, you can see the 6 PIPs that are highlighted in this plan. The first 3 of them were previously approved in the 2013 IMP, but were not built. Number 1 on the map is a Harvard Business School new building. It's a new faculty and administration office building that's proposed as a 3-story building, about 110,000 square feet, and it would be designed to fit within the scale and character of the HBS campus area. Number 2 is the Gateway project. This is located right where the campus and Barry's Corner meet. It's a 300,000 square foot building, mixed use, with an active ground floor and with institutional uses above, intended to be a 9-story building that steps down to 6 stories. And the final carryover project is number 3, Harvard Stadium renovation and addition. This is a project that would restore and respect the historic structure, and it would bring the building up to code in terms of current athletic standards as well as visitor standards. So we also have 3 newly proposed PIPs, 2 of which are in the Harvard Athletics campus area. Number 4 on the map is a tennis and squash racket center. This is envisioned as a 200,000 square foot building that provides year-round courts and would replace an existing tennis pavilion. Number 5 on the map, just adjacent to that, is a new athletic support building for women's rugby at Mignoni Field. This is envisioned as a 20 to 30,000 square foot building and would provide athletic and spectator support uses. And the final project is number 6. It is a project to support the Crimson Catering operation. It's about a 9,500 square foot change of use and interior renovation within the rear portion of the building at 168 Western Avenue. This is a building that has the Swiss Baker's Cafe at the front, which would remain in place and not be affected by the project at the rear. Next slide. So this is the same perspective that we saw before, but looking at just the 10-year PIPs in the context of the existing neighborhood. And you can see that the Gateway project is the most public-facing of the projects, given its location right in Barry's Corner. And the 3 other buildings, new buildings that are proposed, the 2 in athletics, the 1 at HBS, the 3 of them are located a bit interior to the campus, farther away from the public realm. Through our discussions and meetings with the planning department and with the BCDC, we are looking forward to exploring in more detail the urban design and public realm and connections to the campus systems as part of the future Article 80B and 80E processes. Next slide. So because the Gateway project is so public-facing, we did respond to requests to undertake some additional analysis for this project in particular, and really to study the urban design relationship to its context, in particular the adjacent Grove open space, as well as the future home of the American Repertory Theater in the Gold Center, which is right across North Harvard Street. And the vision is that the ground floor uses are publicly activated, publicly accessible, and really support a vibrant public realm. Next slide. The IMP also proposes 3 minor map amendments. Number 1 on the map is the addition of the site at 168 Western Avenue, and that accommodates the Crimson Catering project. The second one is some technical adjustments surrounding the district energy facility. And the third one is the redesignation of the greenway to remove it from the IMP area. So that concludes the highlights of the IMP, and I will turn it back to Mark Handley.
So board members, hand in glove with Harvard's IMP has also been a 10-year commitment related to our previous IMP for community benefits. And as we started this process back in February with our IMP-NF filing, we sought to make the very clear point that we are now riding the coattails of 10 very successful years, and even longer, related to delivering high-quality, cutting-edge community benefits to the Allston-Brighton community. So as we started this process now just over a year ago, we tried to express as clearly as we could our goal to maintain that impact in those high-quality benefits directly to Allston-Brighton residents. And in the same way that our IMP establishes a really high degree of planning continuity with the previous IMP, we wanted to do the same with our community benefits. We need to maintain flexibility as we deliver programs through program areas, especially at the Harvard Ed Portal. And we've also really benefited from our annual reporting on all of our cooperation agreements once a year in a public filing that's posted on the public website, where we track all of our cooperation agreements and report year by year on the progress. Next slide, please. So as it relates to this IMP that we're headed into now, our goal was to maintain a lot of our impact, and our goal was also to make sure that the benefits that Harvard delivers are not, for the most part, tied into the projects that might come out of planning and into proposal at some point over the 10 years. Instead, we want to make sure that many of our benefits, including at the Ed Portal, are fixed to the 10-year term of the IMP to reduce the amount of tension in the waiting for projects to come out to support benefits. So our benefits, generally speaking, with some exceptions like linkage, are attached to the term of the IMP and not to projects which may or may not come out of planning and into proposal. I've mentioned a number of times the Harvard Ed Portal. So it was over 15 years ago, Harvard, along with our elected officials and our community members, including our task force, many of those elected officials who are still with us, representing us, we had this big idea for an Ed Portal to connect Harvard College students with local kids. And by the time our previous IMP was approved, we were all in agreement that that Ed Portal would be blown out into multiple program areas for lifelong learners from 8 years old to 88. And in fact, we're serving people outside of those age ranges as well at this point. Harvard has agreed to fund, in a continued way, the Allston-Brighton Homeownership Program, where we work with a local CDC to purchase houses at market rate, deed restrict them, and sell them as permanent owner occupancy units. Harvard has agreed to fund a feasibility analysis of Harvard-owned parcels in Allston-Brighton for consideration and to assess our ability to create new homeownership in those places. Quinn mentioned the Harvard-Allston Partnership Fund, which you'll hear next on the agenda. We are now almost into year 1 of 10 for that exciting benefit. Ice Time, an incredible upgrade for the Rita DeJesse Community Room at the Honan Allston Library. We're supporting athletics and fitness and civic affairs at public schools. We're going to continue our access across our campus to the community and the amazing maintenance that's done. Ray Malone Park, especially, a park that Harvard donated, paid for the donation, design, and construction of, and we continue to maintain immediately behind the public library on North Harvard Street. And significant funding for known capital projects in North Allston, most especially at Roberts Playground, which is in the Wyndham, Hopedale, Seattle Street neighborhood, and potentially also at other parks as the City Parks Department identifies capital needs. Those are the highlights of our benefits. We also look forward to continuing our comprehensive reporting on benefits to keep track of all the things that are going on and obviously our continued partnership with our local elected officials, our Harvard Alston Task Force. And again, great thanks to all of those stakeholders and all of the BPDA staff for their support so far in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a public hearing, so we're going to go to public testimony first. So if you would like to say something for 2 minutes, you can come to the podium right now.
I'm Cindy Machando, Chair of the Harvard Alston Task Force. We collaborated over a year, 14 months, with Harvard, BPD, community members, elected representatives, both on the state and city level, all while our Mayor Wu worked behind the scenes to foster a collaborative spirit among all stakeholders. So as we move forward, I want to reaffirm that our vision for this community has not changed. We remain committed to fostering collaboration, innovation, and growth where all are welcome. We recognize the challenges that lie ahead, and we understand the impact that these uncertain times are having on our organizations, neighborhood, and families. I will continue to work hand in hand, embracing the opportunities that lie ahead, while sensitive to everyone's needs, paving the way for a brighter, more inclusive tomorrow. I'm proud to say the Harvard Alston Task Force, all the members, and I support the Harvard IMP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimas, Director Chen. My name is, this evening I speak to you not as a member of the Harvard Alston Task Force, but as president of the Alston Civic Association. I want to take this opportunity to thank Harvard, the City of Boston, elected officials, my colleagues on the task force, and most importantly, those who live and work in Alston for a very constructive dialogue over the past 14 months focused on the responsibilities and expectations of an institution who owns 1/3 of the land in our community. I would be remiss in not acknowledging my task force colleagues who negotiated a 10-year IMP approved in 2013 with benefits totaling $43 million. It included support for public realm improvements, the Harvard Ed Portal, housing stabilization, and grants to neighborhood nonprofits. The cost of housing is tearing away at the very fabric of our community. It produces winners and losers. The losers, predominantly low and moderate income families, face profound life-altering decisions when it comes to where they will live and the quality of life they expect. For many, the dream of becoming homeowners seems distant and unattainable. Multiple households packed into single units, residents allocating more than 30% of their gross income on housing, multiple motor vehicles per unit choking our neighborhood streets, low owner occupancy rates, and absentee landlords putting profit ahead of community creates an unsustainable opportunity at community building and civic engagement. As a member of the Article 80 Steering Committee, I want to thank Mayor Wu for her commitment to reforming the development review process and for planning and zoning initiatives to help facilitate the development and restoration of affordable housing. Madam Chair, members of the board, the storm clouds are gathering at the national level, and they will pass quickly. Hopefully they will pass quickly, and when the sunshine reappears, and it will, I hope partnering with this board, we can recommit our resolve to have an institution uniquely positioned to address the aspirations of low and moderate income residents, as well as small businesses, to address the inequities that exist today in housing, education, workforce development, transportation, healthcare, arts and culture, and the environment. John F. Kennedy once said, "To those whom much is given, much is expected." That should be our guiding light over the next 10 years. Future generations will judge us not by what we did, but by what we failed to do. Reciprocal considerations that are creative and bold will define our stewardship of this remarkable, diverse, and inclusive community. We are all being held to a higher standard, and yet success is attainable if the focus is not only on what we can do as individuals, instead of what we can do together as community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have a couple of people on Zoom.
Okay, great.
John Cusack, you can unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, and thank you to the chair, the board, and Chief Shen. My name is John Cusack, and like Tony, I'm not speaking on behalf of the task force. I'm speaking this afternoon on behalf of the North Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters. The men and women of the Carpenters Union are fully in support of the Harvard University Alston Campus 2025-2035 Institutional Master Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Tim McHale, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon to the board and the directors. Tim McHale here, resident of Alston Brighton for the last 50 or so years, and longtime member of the Harvard Alston Task Force, and leader of a couple of nonprofits in the musical and artistic nonprofits in the neighborhood. And for the last year or so, a group of us have been talking about an arts district concept, and I should predicate my little quick talk here with that. I do support the IMP. I'm glad that we've had this time to work together with Mark and his team over the last year. We worked very well together. And there is a sense of a robust community benefits package we're grateful for, and all the work that Harvard has done. However, we feel that some work has been left on the table, and want to address that and just go on the record with it, that our public realm, especially in arts and culture, is suffering. There is none. We have Star Market, and we have Trader Joe's. That's our public realm, and there's no retail to speak of. There's some dashes and dots of restaurants in the neighborhood, and the promise that Barry's Corner was going to be the new Harvard Square is not even close. And what we've done is we've cobbled together a bunch of sites around Harvard Square that are too small for 200,000 or 300,000 square foot labs to go on. And we've cobbled together a really cool concept of an arts district and public realm with boutiques, galleries, studios, venues, theaters. And I'm just hopeful that the board could see and the director, Shen, please, thank you, Director Kairos. I'd love to chat with you about it. That we get energized with that over the next few years, and maybe we can put something together. So again, I support the IMP and all the work that Harvard has done, and I'm grateful for that. But just that the arts and culture in the public realm, where we can go for a sandwich and walk around and just hang and meet our neighbors, it's non-existent. And with all the development that has happened, it's the one thing that's lacking. So I hope the board takes that under consideration for the future, and we move gracefully into the future with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Is there anybody else who would like to testify about this project? Please raise your virtual hand if you're on Zoom. Madam Chair, this concludes the public hearing portion of this item.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Polhemus. Questions or comments from the board?
Through the chair, just because no one made a comment, and this is a 10-year IMP. I've noticed that out of the 6 projects that are in this IMP, none of them really impact the community. They're kind of situated inside the campus area, so that's a great thing. And once I was at which building is that? The ERC building? The multiple buildings, but I was at an event for it, and I remember someone speaking about projects that come through Harvard, and they basically said they don't build for the moment. They build buildings that are there forever, that last forever. And then hearing like from the 1870 something, where the beginning of it, the inception of it, I just love to hear that the quality of work and the thought process that's put into this to create buildings that last generations. And I do appreciate your time and your thoughts when you guys do these. So Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Shepherd. We appreciate it. Harvard has a historic campus already in Alston. The comparison of Alston to Cambridge is going to be something we're talking about for a long, long time. But to introduce new cutting-edge buildings, both to the campus through our IMP, buildings that will be for teaching, learning, and research, but also the prospect of commercial development right next door and the synergies that that creates. It is a very exciting time at Harvard, and we aspire through these planning processes and this community engagement that we can do all that work together, and we can support that work also with world-class benefits and world-class partnerships with our neighbors.
Thank you.
Great. I do have a couple of questions. So I think one of the buildings, the catering building, does abut some of the neighborhood. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of how that community process has gone, or how you've worked with the abutters and to address their concerns?
Yes. So one of the 6 projects that we presented is at street address 168 Western Avenue. Alexandra overviewed that project. It is one of the new projects that is introduced in the IMP. It's about 8,500 square feet of commissary kitchen that, when the building came online as a retail and commissary about 15 years ago, we introduced Swiss Bakers to the community. Swiss Bakers is still there, making great food. And their retail is staying in the front, but they are no longer using the 8,500 square feet or so of commissary kitchen in the back. In alignment with Harvard's needs, we needed a commissary kitchen to locate our internal catering operation, which is called Crimson Catering. There is a residential feeling street directly abutting. There's already a big fence. But there are houses on Travis Street, and there are houses, of course, on Rena Street. We have done an incredible amount of engagement with those folks because we have introduced other uses, including some of Harvard's shuttle buses and recycling to that area. So we have a very touch relationship with our neighbors back there. We also have a passive park right next door, Ray Malone Park, and then the Harvard-owned component, which is a pathway that goes all the way to the ERC that you mentioned earlier. So it is usually quiet, and we fully expect that the existing space in the existing circulation is going to make it quite harmonious at Crimson Catering for our neighbors.
Okay. Great. I guess I don't have any more questions, maybe a few comments. I do appreciate and like the home ownership program portion of the benefits. I do think that's incredibly valuable. I also really like that the community benefits have been detached from the actual projects. As you know, we've had some disappointment in the past, right? When those community benefits are not realized. So I do like that those are detached now, and also that you're tracking the cooperation agreements in a public manner to again continue to repair relationships, build trust with the community, and assure them that the commitments and the community benefits are gonna materialize. So, I guess I do have one question. So what website is that on?
It's on the city planning website.
The city planning website.
We also post it on our Harvard Doc Community website under the Reports tab.
Okay.
But every year, on September 1st, we file with the BPDA, now the Planning Department, that annual report on cooperation agreements.
Got it.
Which covers not just our IMPs, but also other amendments and projects that Harvard has been involved in the permitting.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I also want to just commend the task force, the civic associations, all the participants, and all those who submitted submitted comments. There were some very lengthy, very thoughtful comments on, how they, of things they're still interested in talking about. So I just hope that you continue that collaboration with the task force and civic associations within Alston. And just want to do a shout out to Harvard undergraduates for environmental justice. I really enjoyed reading your comments. But they were just, again, I was blown away with the the level of depth in these comments, and just showing like how much, not only Harvard students care, but also how much the community cares about that environment and it being, collaborative and cohesive. So, so thank you, everybody, for participating. And with that, a motion is in order.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just briefly, two points. One, thank you. I'll echo what has been said, and Mark, knowing you as long as I have, it's no surprise that you've worked with such a collaborative approach with the community, and to hear members actually show up. These can often be very contentious meetings, and this is far from it. So it's a testament to that approach that I know you bring. And Alexandra, you mentioned one of the slides, some of the sort of longer tail things. It's not really, I don't think it's included in this IMP, but just very curious if you give the Reader's Digest version on on-site renewable energy sources that are sort of in the larger plan.
Right. So in our IMP, we report specifically, we included a map on all of the on-site renewable solar PV, which is, I think, about 19 buildings on the Alston campus have it now, and there are two. One in planning at 175 North Harvard, and one will be solar ready at 175 North Harvard Street. So that is a very, I think it's 1.8 megawatts of solar PV on the campus. And in the context of all of Harvard's campus, we have about 3 megawatts of solar PV.
Really impressive. That's great. That's I'm sure that's probably the nation's standard, if not close to it. So well done. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
I think I don't know.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd? Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
And Matt O'Malley? Mr. O'Malley?
You can always call me Matt. Madam Chair, aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Members, thank you.
Okay. Oh, wait, no, we gotta go back. We gotta go back to 20, yeah. All right, thanks.
What are you doing?
All right, item number, I'm just gonna give a second, all right. Okay, item number 20. Request authorization to issue a determination waiving further review pursuant to section 80A-6 of the zoning code in connection with the notice of project change filed by 22 Dry Dock LLC regarding the proposed ISQ3 project at 20 and 22 Dry Dock Avenue, also known as 331 through 339 Northern Avenue, and issue one or more certifications or partial certifications of compliance for the revised project under section 80B-6 upon successful completion of the Article 80B large project review process, and to execute an amendment to the cooperation agreement dated April 17th, 2024, to take all related actions. Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimis, and Director Shen. I'm Tyler Ross, Senior Project Manager in the Development Review Division. The proposal before you is 22 Dry Dock Ave, notice of project change, located in the Raymond L. Marine Park in South Boston waterfront neighborhood. On September 4th, 2024, the developer filed a notice of project change. The proposed project change consists of the addition of a pedestrian bridge connecting the SQ3 and the SQ2 building over Northern Avenue. The construction of the proposed pedestrian bridge totals approximately just over 1,500 square feet of gross floor area. The proposed pedestrian bridge will have a minimum height clearance of approximately 32 feet, 6 inches over all portions of Northern Avenue. Additionally, the Planning Department hosted a public meeting on October 1st, 1st, 2024, which was well advertised in the local newspaper. The project change is also contributing $3.3 million for transportation improvements identified in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park Master Plan update, along with an increased dip payment for the additional square footage the pedestrian bridge is adding to the project. With that, I will now turn it over to Joseph Mamayak to begin the presentation. Lastly, I want to say thank you to the members of the public, elected officials, and city agencies who helped review the 22 dry dock proposed notice of project change. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. Joe Mamayak, the design principal at SGA, and it's not too often that you get to do a bridge, and when it happens, you take it quite seriously and you have some fun with it. What you're seeing here is the site. I want to give you a little background here. It's in the Marine Industrial Park. On the left-hand side is an aerial view. You can see the red line with the arrows as the proposed location connection between the two buildings. On the right-hand side is the plan. So Leiden Center 1 is existing as the home of Vertex Pharmaceutical. Leiden Center 2, but the address is 22 Dry Dock, is the building that's currently under construction. It's a life science project. The red line here is the connection of the two buildings by way of this bridge. And as we heard before, it is for moving science in a connectivity and synergies between the two buildings. Next, please. A little bit about the existing conditions. You can see on the left-hand side the sort of a plan view, area view of Leiden Center 1 and Leiden Center 2. There's a couple perspectives or photographs on the right-hand side of conditions of the site and prior to the demolition of those buildings that were on that. You know, lower 3- and 4-story buildings out of brick and concrete, defined by open space and parking lots over there. You can get a little bit of the sense of the public realm right in there, the contouring, the street improvements that were in place at that time. Next, please. Site plan, just showing, again, Leiden Center 1, the existing building there, down below Leiden Center 2, and the location of the bridge is done in such a way to respect the urban framework. The existing entry to Leiden Center 1, you can see sort of in the middle of that building mass, and down below Leiden Center 2, which is under construction with a new civic space, really celebratory, and it's going to be a really lively space right there. So that bridge is located in such a way to respect that. Also pulled away from the outer edges or near the intersections, which causes some confusions at that point. And in addition to that, location has great synergies with their program of both buildings. Next, please. The section or the elevation on the left-hand side, you're going to get a really good sense of proportions and scales. As this bridge spans 98.5 feet across, it's connected at the 3rd level of both buildings. In this view, Leiden Center 1 is on the right-hand side. That's the existing building. On the left-hand side is Leiden Center 2, which is under construction. Down below, you can see the dimensional clearances. There's ample clearance under there to respect, obviously, the traffic that will be there. Also, the existing infrastructure in terms of street poles, the street trees, and there's a Silver Line bus line stations you can see on either side of the street. And then from the street itself, that's Northern Ave in the center as it steps up gracefully, and that has to do resiliency and sea level rise to the main entrances, which are obviously accessible as well. On the right-hand side is a section through that bridge. You get a really good sense of how that is can be experienced in terms of structure. A lot of it is below the floor line and above. A strategic move within the design itself was to move away from the corners and make a very strong center beam right there that takes a lot of the forces to make a more elegant structure. And then by another really important thing, working with the BPDA and the staff is really looking at how to create more glazing. So we added a transparent roof on there. So you have 3 sides of glazing along with a nice straightforward structural element that really celebrates the span of this bridge. Finally, the bottom, you can see a little bit of the contouring of this bridge that brings a little bit more interest to the overall envelope and gives something back to the experience in the public realm on both sides of the street. Next, please. In terms of perspectival views, on the left-hand side, you can see on either side of Northern Ave as you approach this bridge. And here you can really see the elegance of the material expression. You can see the transparency of the glass that's being used and the dynamic structural forces that span. We took a lot of time to look at the sensitivity, not only of the bridge, but also how it connects to both of these bridges and the language that it has to sort of negotiate between that to do a nice seamless transition. With that, on the right-hand side, on the upper, you can see the experience of going through that space, nice, light and airy, very transparent and clean in its expression. And certainly, you know, a lot of studies have been done at night as it transitions from daytime to nighttime, how lighting can sort of reinforce the dynamic expression of the structure and the space itself. So with that, I think that's the last slide. So we're very happy with that and look forward to your thoughts.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
Through the chair. I think that's a great idea. I'm not too sure how far along the Vertex 2 building is structurally.
Structurally,
It's pretty early.
The steel is going up on Leiden Center 2, so we're very happy about the progress of that construction right
And this
now.
will this coincide with the construction of that building?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We've also, you know, the bridge obviously wasn't planned at the time of the building itself, so we had to do some interventions with the steel to take into account that connection and that portal connection with that building. So we've done all that planning, you know, ahead of time.
2 solid steel structures going all the way across, and you'll probably use the crane already available on site. So I guess I say that, I'm asking that, but I say that to say not a lot of interruption with traffic.
We've done a construction plan, and we've done 2 studies actually, how to do the bridge in 2 pieces and install it. We've also looked at a 1 piece that is put together at grade and then brought into place by crane to minimize the disruption, you know, of traffic on that street.
Thank you.
Cool. Additional questions or comments? I do agree that it is a very elegant looking bridge. Kind of took me back to the bridge project days in like physics class in like 8th grade. So yeah, I'll ask you later about that steel bar at the top, trying to get a sense of that. But yeah, no, I think it's beautiful, and thank you for taking into consideration the impact to the city and the surrounding area as you're constructing and figuring out how to put that thing there. So
Yeah, thank you.
I'm glad you have a plan for that. All right, any additional questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsberg?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we can move on to item number 22. Request authorization to disperse $200,000 from the Harvard-Alston Partnership Fund to 25 nonprofit community organizations in the Alston-Brighton neighborhood. Aaron.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Paul Hamus, and Director Chen. Following up on the board agenda item a couple ago with the IMP for Harvard, I'm here to ask if we can give away Harvard's money. So it's $200,000 this round. This is year 17 for the Harvard Partnership Fund. Originally, they used to give $100K a year. This is $200,000. This is going to be the first year of this new IMP term. Basically, if you just look at the board memo, you see 25 organizations receiving various sums. from Harvard directly. So as soon as we have this taken care of, I know in consultation with Harvard, we're going to start getting these checks out to them ASAP. Please, if you have any questions, I'm here for you.
Great. Questions or comments from the board? Great organizations. These are going to. If there are no other questions or comments, a motion is in order.
So moved?
Second?
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Go give away that money.
Thank you.
All right, item number 23, request authorization to amend the memorandum of agreement by and between the City of Boston and the Boston Redevelopment Authority concerning the transfer of funds by the BRA to the City of Boston to reimburse the city for the cost of staff and services transferred to the city. Devin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the same item from the EDIC agenda about moving the date of the presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved?
Second?
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 24, I need a motion to pay the bills.
I move that we pay our bills.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Please pay the bills. And finally, director's update. Director Shen, the floor is yours.
Good evening, members of the board. I want to start by summarizing some of the highlights of today's board meeting and approvals. 5 new projects that were approved, totaling 171 residential units, of which 107 of them will be income restricted. That's over 63%. And you should, as you hear some of the report card on how this administration has been producing more affordable housing than any other previous administration. These 5 new projects will total an investment of $307 million, and they will collectively build 485,000 square foot, of which 170,000 of them will be residential, devoted to residential development. When constructed, these projects will put approximately 84 trade peoples to work and create 1,052 direct jobs and 309 indirect jobs. Now, for the income-restricted housing, many of the board members already highlighted the large number of affordable home ownership units, beginning with the 65 Seattle Street project that was built on land designated by Harvard for the development of income-restricted housing as part of the community benefits package for the Harvard Enterprise Research Campus plan that was approved approximately 18 months ago. So we're seeing the fruit of the university essentially subsidizing these new home ownership, income-restricted home ownership units. That project will provide 43 new income-restricted home ownership units in Austin, exactly the type of housing that was identified in the Austin-Brighton Needs Assessment. So this is a great example of what can happen when planning is in the lead. This development is delivering on priorities identified through our planning work, and you could hear echoed by the Harvard Austin Task Force, who worked very closely with our staff to develop these priorities. In addition, of course, there were at 77 Terrace Street, a project that will deliver 48 income-restricted home ownership units in the Mission Hill community. Both of these developments will add positive impact to their communities, and I want to thank the residents for their input and being part of these development review processes. Another highlight, of course, I think many of you see every board. It seems like we have an office to residential conversion project. We've approved the latest residential conversion at 15 Court Street, which is just across the street from where we are. The project will convert a former office building into 80 new homes in downtown, and is the 4th largest of the office to residential conversion projects that we've had. Now, if you've been keeping count, there's 15 projects that are in our program, of which this is the 7th one to be approved.
Very exciting to see these projects. I think this is one of those programs that are truly universally liked, and we're very excited about that. We're also delighted that the state will provide some funding to actually help make these projects feasible. So in addition to the tax abatement that's provided by the program from the city, the state is also providing some grant funding for this particular project. I want to end by highlighting the Harvard IMP, which is providing significant public benefits through this institutional master plan. The university has committed to a number of key community benefits over the next 10 years. Some of them include the continual funding for the Harvard Ed Portal, $250,000 to support the Honan Alston Library, the continued contribution of the $200,000 per year for the Harvard Alston Partnership Fund, which you authorized the direct funding and spending of the money already tonight. There's the improvement to Roberts Park, continued funding to the Albright Home Ownership Program to support Alston, and also support for the Alston Brighton Youth Sports. They also, of course, agreed to undertake a study to identify additional parcels in their land holding in Alston that might be most appropriate for affordable housing creation in the future, not unlike the parcel that was designated tonight in Seattle Street. So I think that was a very fruitful conclusion to you heard, a 14-month process where Harvard engaged the community, and I want to thank all of the community members involved, the staff involved in making that a success. So that ends my report for tonight. Thank you again, board members, for your continued support of our city and our agency.
Awesome, thank you. All right, with that, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Matt O'Malley?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. It just rolls off the top. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Matt O'Malley.
You know that, right? So,